selector, rewind selector, rewind selector. Rewind selector, rewind selector, rewind selector.
They didn't know, Kev. They only saw Eugene, CJ and Dongalord hiding behind the house, waiting patiently. If that 4005 can blow up Rainbow in one shot.
Oh, great trades coming forward, though, from the Bulldogs. You can see how much HP has been bled out, and now Madhouse can come into the equation.
JS now, one shot away from getting rid of Gubov. What a tracking shot. And now they'll be able to continue this train rolling. Just look at all these tanks coming around the corner. Time to find out how this is going to work out for Panthers, because they need to start putting some of that damage back onto speed. Oh my word. Inevitably, Knight dies to 2 Batchats. That's just a given. But it's a question of how much damage comes through. Oh, never mind. It's just 1 Batchat now. Great shot. He's the one that's being more mobile. He's the one that's trying to look for this engagement.
Yes.
He hits the shot.
We're back. It's time. It's 3 weeks left until final. But today we've got the semis, and this is a big week, gents. I think, next week is going to be exciting. The grand final is going to be a hoot, but this is the week where we decide who makes it through. And there are a couple of big storylines at play this week, Elfish Guy.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, obviously the fact that Skorpions has managed to make it through, and there's an opportunity for them to potentially make it into that grand final against Sentinels, which would be the Sydney versus Sydney matchup. Melbourne Matildas get to have another crack as well after, being able to make it into the semis last time around. They weren't actually able to make it through to the grand finals. And also the fact that we don't have Bulldogs here today. So that leaves the door open for another team, which we were quite surprised, obviously, to see in the Panthers making their sort of late entry into the semi-finals. But unfortunate for Bulldogs, very fortunate for the teams that they've left the door open for. So a lot of opportunities and a lot of interesting things to sort of take a look at as we go through tonight's matches. Yeah,
a couple of surprising teams, perhaps, Kev, in the top 4. Everyone's certainly deserving to be here. Some notable absences, as Jordan alluded to. The Bulldogs, their run towards the end of the season was not what perhaps they had hoped for. The Action X as well, just at the post, they don't make it through. And the Panthers come through instead. Last week was a wild ride.
Yeah, and it's starting to... I got to feel bad, actually, for not Centurion Action X, the Adelaide Action X. I will always make that mistake, owning that tank myself. But you got to feel bad. 2 seasons in a row now, I felt like they've dropped out in 5th or 6th position.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes maybe not favorable circumstances, oftentimes in a matchup where they do have the fate in their own hands. And it's starting to feel like for them, always the bridesmaid, never really the bride. But you have to say the Perth Panthers, a bit of a fairy tale story for them to be here. They had a chance thanks to the Melbourne Matildas, admittingly another team in the finals today. They took hold of it and they kind of went the entire distance. They've been playing very well towards the end of the season. So I think we're going to have some excellent semi-final games for the rest of the playoffs. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Are we going to see the 2 Sydney teams in the grand final? Are we going to see the Matildas come through with potentially an upset and make their way through? Are we going to see the Perth Panthers with some miracle fairy tale run from what was essentially bottom of the ladder to somehow coming out on top? There's an awful lot at stake, but let's take a look at last week's results just to I guess, frame how we got here, Jordan, and the fact that, today is not necessarily the teams we expected to see, but the way we got there was pretty epic.
Yeah, well, I mean, a 4-0 for Melbourne Matildas kind of started to give us an indication of where we might head for the season finals. I think we were looking at that last week and saying there's an opportunity for any number of teams to still make it into the top 4. Certainly Bulldogs was a talking point. Archers was a talking point as well. And then that match between Panthers and Adelaide Action X was a big deal as well. But, you start off with a 0-4 from Bulldogs. You kind of get a bit of an idea that, well, they're probably not going to be making it to the finals, nor do they really deserve to make the finals based on the run that they had into the final stages of the competition. So they got pipped to the post. Obviously, Melbourne Matildas at that point had locked themselves in. We kind of knew that Sentinels and Skorpions were going to make it through. It was just a question of what their seeding was going to look like. And obviously, ultimately, it comes down to that final match of the day. And between those two teams, it could have been one or the other, but it was Panthers to walk away with a 3-1 victory. And I feel like they made a really, really nice resurgence. It was such a bad start to the season for them, as you sort of allude to there. They got off to like a 0-2 start or 0-3 start or something like that. And finally, they got a win when they went up against Conquerors. And we thought, okay, that's fine. That's well and good. But Conquerors was the other team that had not gotten any wins to that point. So didn't really see too much from them. We didn't necessarily expect too much from them. And then obviously as the weeks went on, Panthers looked better and better and better. And, they make it to the finals. So very impressive stuff. Good resurgence from them.
Yeah, they look really quite good last week, and they've had a pretty good run into finals, to be honest. So very keen to see what they have in store tonight. Let's take a look at our leaderboard and where we stood and where the bottom four teams will remain for the results for this season. So the top four were the Sentinels, the Skorpions, the Matildas, and the Panthers, as we know. The Action X, the team from Adelaide, they came all so close. They also got 10 points, but as luck would have it, they lose on the head-to-head because the Panthers were literally the team who beat them on the day, and they do go through. The thing for me, Kev, out of all of this was that the Panthers got through by picking up both sides of Sand River, a map I don't think they had won at all, or maybe they picked up one battle total for the duration of the season, which is an impressive way to get there. And then the fact that the Bulldogs and the Archers ended up in 6 and 7, to be honest, if you'd asked me where I thought they would end up after week 1 or week 2, it certainly wouldn't have been those spots.
Yeah, I think everyone would agree with you that Bulldogs and Archers, we're expecting a lot more from Bulldogs. Obviously, they had quite a good run during season 2. They even made their way into the finals in season 1. So it is obviously a bit sad to see them actually not even, I wouldn't say not close to contesting, but when you look at it realistically on 8 points from a team that really pushed Sentinels to the edge last season, it's definitely it's a big fall from grace. And also for the always to talk about the potential, lots of strong players, obviously the ability for them to make a deep run into the playoffs and potentially challenge the throne. But ending similarly to the Bulldogs, I think it really means at the end it's going to be a pretty lackluster season. I think most of the time you've got to look at it this way. If you're losing more than you're winning, it is a pretty lackluster season. So, I mean, and that's why, once again, I feel bad for Adelaide Action X. I don't think they had a rough season. I honestly think they had a pretty solid one. They had their up weeks, they had their down weeks. Unfortunately, it just came down to one series, which they couldn't really put 1 point on the board against the Panthers. That was just on the up and up, right? You look at the Panthers, you're going, well, technically they lost more. But because only one of them was a tiebreaker loss and one of them was an outright victory in comparison to Adelaide Action X, then that makes all the difference at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy when you see that the Action X had 2 wins and 2 tiebreaker wins. The Perth Panthers only had 3 wins, but they were full-blown wins plus a tiebreaker loss. And at the end of the day, look, you have, it's in your hands if you're the Action X. And the Panthers, I guess, were in a similar situation, except they had the flip side. Their run-through was more difficult. They're the team that had to win. They had to get a full-blown win against the Action X. And, look, if you lose to a team head-to-head in the last week of the season, there's not much you can say about that, right? If they come out on top of you, when it comes to that bracket. So let's go and take a look at our finals bracket and what we're going to see across the next few weeks. So semi-final day today, semi-final 1 is the South Sydney Scorpions up against the Melbourne Matildas. That is seed 2 and seed 3. And then semi-final number 2 following on this evening is the North Sydney Sentinels and the Perth Panthers. The winner of these 2 semis, of course, go through to our grand final in 2 weeks' time. Next week, we will have our 3rd place playoffs. So if you lose, you're not out. Like, you're out, but you're not out, right? You get a game next week. We're playing for cash. I think there's $500 difference between 3rd and 4th place, Jordan. But for me, and we haven't really touched on the prize pool much since this, we kind of, we said it at the start of the season. We've kind of left it as it is. But right now, there are 4 teams. And the team that comes away as ANZPL Season 3 champions get 10,000 AUD. Like, that's a significant amount of money for any sort of competitive gaming or esports. So it's great to see Tanks back up there and a lot to play for right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's obviously that. The prize pool is a big deal for these teams, but there's also some rivalries that I think we've seen develop over the course of, the 3 seasons of ANZPL that we've had. Obviously, there's those 2 Sydney teams matching up against one another that we haven't been able to see playing against each other in a grand final yet, even though it's felt like if we would have gotten that as a grand final, maybe last season, it definitely would have been a deserving one. There was definitely moments where it it sort of felt like those two teams were the ones that might make it through. Bulldogs, unfortunately not being able to make it back does stymie some of the storylines because they were one of the recurring semi-finalist teams. But, I think for me, yeah, it's a lot about the rivalries that are starting to develop this time around as well. I mean, again, for Skorpions and Matildas, they matched up in the season finals last season as well. It was in the third, fourth place match. Now it's in a semi-final. But so many parallels that you can draw between, season 2 and season 3 in particular. But, even going back to season 1, there's a couple of teams here that we're sort of excited to see going through into those season 1 finals. So a lot of history involved.
Yeah, are the Skorpions and the Sentinels going to go head-to-head again in the finals, but this time in the grand final? Potentially would be a bit of an upset. Maybe we'll see them go head-to-head in the third place playoff. Who knows how it plays out? But I think of the 2 games tonight, this first one's probably going to be the closest. I think the Matildas might be able to give the Skorpions a run for their money. And for the second one, obviously the Sentinels looking to go back to back to back, the three-peat champions. But from what we've seen from the Panthers lately, they're in fine form. And again, if they can win last week, there's nothing to say they can't pick it up this week as well. So we'll come back to our first semi-final a little bit later on. But for now, let's go and take a look at our Alienware sharpshooters. Now, you all know that we have been following this for the entire season. We had our sharpshooters, we had our MVP, we had our top team each week as well from all of the players. And across the next 3 weeks, we're going to break it down and announce who is the winner of each of these 3 leaderboards. So for this week, the Alienware sharpshooters, it's going to be Critical. Kev, Critical, sort of, I kind of feel like it came from nowhere. Maybe if we went back to week 2 or 3, you could see he was up there and maybe I'm an idiot, but kind of feel like he's had a great run through the end of the season. He's our Alienware sharpshooter winner, which is that 27-inch monitor. And those are some pretty impressive stats up there, to be honest, if you take a look. Even the difference between first and fifth is not insignificant.
Yeah, it's only, 2% at the end of the day in terms of the pen rate, which is what I believe they're looking at ultimately. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's not the hit rate, because I think Wymo's got that better conversion in terms of the hit rate. But and I think it's made doubly impressive considering the tanks at Critical. Even you're looking down the list, you're looking at the tanks at Critical, Bluey, Wymo. They're all playing these heavy brawler-style tanks, and that makes it even more impressive. Even the fact that the Conquerors, they end up at the bottom of the season, but they're still penning their shots. They're the players that are getting into the brawls. They're the ones that are fighting it out. They're hitting the shots that count. And maybe if they just continue on that same trajectory, this is not only a case of the Conquerors going on the up and up if they improve together as a team, but also in the case of, and you have to look at redrafts and everything going on to next season. This is a big compelling argument. If a team is looking for a brawler and all of a sudden one of these guys is a free agent for whatever reason, it's a compelling statement to make. Hey, I play these 277s, VZ55s, and my pen rate is 88.6%, which is better than anyone in the league.
Yeah, I kind of want to give a shout out there as well to Bales, Jordan. We can see, obviously, he's come through in 4th place, but his damage plus assist is quite a bit higher than everyone else up there, 83.2K, which is absolutely huge. So we know how well Bales has gone as well this season, and potential for him to do some more work tonight, I expect, but not a bad result there either.
Yeah, definitely not. I'm sure we'll talk about him a lot this evening. Obviously, Rainbow's in there as well as someone that has a pretty good, solid conversion rate in that respect. I'd expect those two to be really key figures in their rosters, their matches for this evening, and I'm sure we've got some talking points related to that as well as we sort of go into those head-to-head matchups and whatnot. Yeah.
So again, congrats to Critical. We've seen him play so well this season. Unfortunately, the Conquerors will end up at the bottom of the ladder, but Critical going to go home with that Alienware Sharpshooter Award and the 27-inch monitor. So I assume that cannot hurt his chances for next season, because pretty impressive way to do it. Thanks to Alienware for their support all season long, and for giving away the Alienware Sharpshooter competition winner monitor. Exclamation mark Alienware in chat if you want to find out more. But we'll take a look next week at, I think next week might be the MVP. We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be a surprise. So, FPL gents, one of us is ahead of the other two right now, and that person is me. Let's take a look at our FPL team of the week from the last week of regular season play. Kev, critical in the team as well. Nice little 2-star there. But 2 Skorps, not a bad result for them. Can they follow it up this week? That's the real question.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be bringing out all the guns. Also, Goober from the Panthers starting to make an appearance. And this is a case of maybe it's a story of finally, we've been hyping Goober up this entire season. There's always talks about how he's a solid player. He's always the guy that you really want. Never really kind of showed up in earlier weeks, in all honesty, for someone that's 5 stars and everything. But obviously, towards the end, that's exactly where you want someone when your star players be popping off. 2+2 as well, making that appearance for the Matildas and being a huge part of their conversion of that 4-0 against the Bulldogs as well. So it's good to see some of my ex-clanmates doing quite well in terms of 2+2 and critical. So hopefully they're able to, well, for critical, obviously the season's over, but 2+2, if he's premiering today, could be a big part, obviously, in this semi-finals. You're going to need someone that has that brawling capability to go against Napalmer as well as Aussie, who are both some fantastic kind of shooters in their own right. It's really good at anchoring positions and brawling it out.
Yeah, going to be looking for Aussie and Napalmer to step up tonight, I expect. And as we said, yeah, Goober, we've been hyping him up quite a lot all season long. So one last shot. 2+2. I'm a big fan of 2+2. I think 2+2, a pretty good 2-pick, to be perfectly honest with you. Almost chucked him in again. But FPL still continues through this week. You can keep picking through playoffs. If you haven't picked already, then bad luck. That was a bit silly of you. But yeah, I'm going to win. I'm still ahead. I'm going to beat Elfish Guy and Kev. Kev's way back. He's got no chance of catching me. Elfish Guy thinks he's good, but he's not really. So we'll see. We've still got 3 weeks left to play. I haven't picked. It was pretty hard this week, Jordan, actually, to pick 5. I think I've got 4. It's hard to use up all the stars when there's only 4 teams.
Yeah, it's a bit interesting, isn't it? I've only got 4 players in my roster as well. You could theoretically, because there was options for like 1 and 2-star picks, but obviously it sort of lends itself towards high star picks when we're into the top 4 teams. Generally speaking, those teams are the ones that have the better players on them, and those better players generally have a higher star rating. So if you want to be picking up solid players, I don't think you can be going much below 3 in a lot of cases. And even, to be honest, most of the guys that were actually available to pick were a 4-star or higher in most cases. There was a couple of sort of outside chances, and I guess, players that had like 2 stars or 1 star were players that didn't really get a huge amount of game time, and that's 2+2 in a nutshell. I feel like, he would probably be a shoo-in as a 2-star if he played every single game, because the amount of value that you would get out of him would just be really, really good. But you can't necessarily guarantee that 2+2 is going to play all 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever matches this evening for the Matildas. So I guess for me, that's kind of a bit of a curveball, isn't it? It's like, yeah, I could pick 5 stars and I know that they're going to play, but
yeah,
is that really the best choice? Or should I go for like 2 4-stars, 3 4-stars, and a 3-star or something like that? It's all a bit of a gamble.
It is, and you're not very good at it, which is why I'm betting. No, we'll see how tonight goes. We'll see how it all ends up. But all right, let's bring this one back. Tonight's matches, we've already sort of touched on it, but just to reiterate, tonight is semi-final night. The South Sydney Skorpions up against the Melbourne Matildas. That's what we're going to kick off in just a couple of minutes. Following that, the North Sydney Sentinels up against the Perth Panthers. It's going to be an absolute cracker of a night. We've made our predictions, gents, and I think we've all gone for something a little bit different. Elfish Guy with the 5-head has the Skorpions and the Sentinels. Of course, Jordan goes with the favourites. Classic Elfish Guy. Sandman's come out with the Matildas and the Sents because I'm kind of cool like that. And Karath finally has picked the Skorpions again, and then the Panthers just to be the guys. So we've all got something a little bit different this week. We'll see who comes out on top. I think tonight anything is possible, but seed 1 and seed 2 looking pretty good. Anyway, all right, our first matchup of the night, it's the Skorpions up against the Matildas. Jordan, this Skorps lineup, this team, we've been hyping them all season long. Sometimes they have disappointed me personally, and when the pressure has been on, I don't know. Has it been struggle street? Nevertheless, they find themselves in seed 2, exactly where they need to be, and a good shot at the grand final now.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. I think that there is a good shot for them, but I am a little bit concerned about the run in from Skorpions to the top 4. they did really well in the last, let's say in the first 4 weeks. All right, they did really well, and we're actually going to kind of see it here as well in their path to finals. There was the loss to the Bulldogs. That's fine, whatever. Yep. Bulldogs was looking really good at that point in time, but they got a win and then a loss and then 2 more wins, and they were 4 weeks into the season. We sort of said, yep, they're up 3-1. That's looking really good for them. They should make it through to finals from here. But then you see the loss come through for Sentinels. Again, you probably say that's acceptable, given Sentinels is a very, very solid squad, and we expect them to be a strong contender to probably take top spot this season. But what's more egregious to me is the fact that they only go to a 3-2 against Archers, which at that point was an Archers that was kind of struggling a little bit. And then especially more, the 3-2 against the Conquerors in the final week of the competition. Yes, to be fair, they weren't fielding their full roster. JT only came in for the tiebreaker match. But I kind of want to see a strong run into the finals from these teams. And I don't necessarily think we kind of got that from Skorpions. So I think there's been good moments, definitely, and I think their peaks have been really, really high, but the consistency, I'm not so sure there for Skorpions. And when you look at the matches against the really good teams in the league, which was Bulldogs earlier on in the season, Sentinels, of course, and then I guess Matildas is worth discussing there as well. Some close results there and obviously some losses coming through as well. So maybe they have enough today to get over the Matildas, but if they get into a grand final against Sentinels, is that going to be a match that they're going to be able to win? Because historically, they have barely ever been able to beat Sentinels. So for me, that's a bit of a concern, I'd say, if that ends up being the grand final for them. Like I said, I'm obviously not predicting Panthers, Ben. So I think for both Matildas and for Skorpions today, they're going to be looking toward that match against the Sentinels more likely than not. And, that's obviously a very difficult task. So Skorpions is a good team. Don't get me wrong, but I think they have issues with choking and I think they have issues with consistency. So that's kind of what I'm on the lookout for today.
I think, Kev, that Jordan makes some good points there, right? Like, we take a look at some of these highlights of their season, and there are a lot of highlights with this Skorpions team. They lost to the Bulldogs. It kind of feels like everyone struggled against the Bulldogs early season. Their other loss against the Sentinels, as Jordan alluded to, the run to the finals could have been very different. They probably should have won that game against the Sentinels. They got reverse swept, and then they went 3-2, 3-2 against the next two teams. It could have been beat the Sentinels, demolish the Archers, and really seal the deal, put the Conks in the bin, don't let it go too far. And that could have been the run to finals for the Skorps.
I mean, I agree with those points, but also I think the most egregious one out of all of them actually is that loss against the Sentinels, because I think that one is always going to be the hardest one. You're looking back now, 2 matches, 2 head-to-heads that you had against the Sentinels. And why are we talking about the Sentinels so much when we don't know if they're in the finals? Well, the Sentinels are the benchmark of what we're seeing this season. If we're looking at the excellence, if you want to win ANZPL, right? So the Panthers, if they are to obviously make their way into the finals, you have to take down a very dominant Skorpions. So, not Skorpions, but the Sentinels at that stage. So I feel like the 0-2 down was a tough part. And the Matildas, well, this is a good time for them to strike back at this stage because they're coming into this, I feel like, in decent form as well.
Yeah, Kev, I'm happy for you to keep going about the Matildas here because I think they've actually had a pretty good season. Obviously, coming in as 3rd seed is not a bad spot at all. And their results, as we're going to see here, they've had some pretty good results. They've lost 2 games, and one of those was to the Skorpions. But beyond that, particularly seeing that Sentinels win, look, yeah, you go, okay, maybe they're a little bit lucky with that one, sure. But they still picked up a bunch of maps, a bunch of battles, nevertheless, against that Sentinels lineup. They still picked up 2, irrespective of whatever you say for how week 1 played out.
Yeah, I feel like this is very much a team which, stylistically, I think they was trying to still use the same way that they played during early season 2 or through season 2, and they kind of got punished for it early on, and then they had to kind of settle down and figure out what they wanted to do. And I think that's the part where that loss against the Skorpions, really, we started seeing a bit of a change from the Matildas at that stage. That's when the key players, when you're talking about, you get a pickup like Bowl, that's a huge pickup, right? Like, you look at that, you go, you get a wealth of experience. He's one of the top players inside the league. That's a huge pickup to bolster already very talented roster. All that required was a calling in terms of Whippet just improving week after week at that stage. And that's it. They're making a solid run in terms of like the Panthers result. We'll forget about what happened on Tundra, obviously, because it was definitely not a good moment. It's a dominant run. There's been no tiebreakers outside of that one. For the last 4 weeks, they're just on every single high, taking all these victories.
Yeah, they look pretty good. I think the Matildas look pretty good. And I think they do have a shot against the Skorpions tonight. We'll take a look at the maps. Matildas go and ban is that Cliff, and then Tundra, Muravanka, Himmelsdorf. We're going to see Santa Mines, Ghost Town, and then potentially Prokhorovka. We know how much we love that as a tiebreaker, Jordan. How important are the maps tonight? I know we kind of talk about it every week, but it's a best of 7 battles tonight, so a little bit tougher than usual.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I got to say, I was a little bit surprised to actually see these picks coming through. I think Mines is definitely not a map that we've expected teams to head towards for the vast majority. I actually thought Ghost Town might be the pick for the Skorpions, but I guess, inevitably they were happy to sort of see that one go through regardless. As far as the bans are concerned, I don't think any of the bans are unreasonable. Cliff's a good one for Skorpions, so get rid of that as far as Matildas is concerned. The other maps are all just like 50-50 maps, so get them out of the picture. Sand River's a good one, though. Let's take that. I'm a fan.
I'm a big fan of this. I think Sand River is a great way to start semi-finals for ANZ PL Season 3 as the Skorpions up against the Matildas. The Skorpions looking to make their way through to the finals, potentially versus the Sentinels in the grand final that I personally been looking for since forever. But the Matildas, they deserve that spot as well, and I'm ready to see what they can bring tonight.
Yeah, indeed. And just to sort of recap how things went in their last match before we get too deep into this one, Kev. It was a 3-1 victory for the Skorpions, and Himmelsdorf was actually in the pool that time. It's not this time around, though, so we don't have that one. We do, of course, have Ghost Town, which, if I remember correctly, was a 2-0 for the Skorpions, so that could be a bit of a problem for Matildas. If we get to Ghost Town and they're at a deficit, they might not be feeling too confident.
Yeah, but I definitely feel like the week 3 Matildas is very different to the week 7 and obviously the semi-finals Matildas at this stage. It just felt like it was a bit disconnected earlier on in the season. They've integrated a lot of these, I wouldn't say necessarily egos, but like when you have a lot of experienced players who may have different pictures or different visions of how they want to play the game, sometimes it takes a little bit of time until you gel together. And I feel like that's actually what's happened with the Matildas now. Everything is starting to come back together. So obviously a big test in terms of Sand River up against JT. And there was one thing that I wanted to talk about the Skorpions. And I feel like the run this season was made so much more impressive because JT is an individual. I think it went, you know what? Scuff it. I'm not playing the sacrificial tanks now. On this 5-5 format, you need every tank to pull his weight. He started just going the big boy tanks. And you know what? He's doing pretty well so far this season. I really feel like the Skorpions is a team that is now not just you're relying on Napalm and Russian to really do the heavy bulk of the work. You've honestly got a fantastic core that can get everything done.
Yeah, it's very interesting as well, talking about the individual players that we don't actually have Bolognese in the server at the moment. So I don't know whether that's a map-dependent thing or whether he's not going to be playing at all tonight. But we do have Arnie Nubin, who's, I guess, in this instance, probably the one that you would call the quote-unquote sub. Obviously, not necessarily. He sort of tends to share some time with Saxon and 2+2 and whoever does end up getting traded out. But for me, obviously, Bolognese having played like 80-90% of the battles that we've seen from Matildas, it's obviously a big player to be missing, as he has statistically been one of their better performers as well. But we'll see, how they go. Obviously, on the attack, they're not off to the worst of starts here, Kev. They've got a lot of map control. They've put a bit of bleed damage onto JT in that Crown Bargain. Nothing to really write home about in terms of the damage, at least. But the map control is definitely nice. They're starting to get a bit of an idea of what Skorpions and their setup looks like on the defense.
Napalm, though, is looking to get some bit more information. He's not pushing too far beyond the threshold just yet. I think it's a bit of an interesting approach from the Skorpions, where a lot of their tanks are actually backed up very far into the corner. CS63s and, well, the Skorpions are CS63s, and we're talking about Bol. He would normally be playing a CS63 on the attack as well. I do remember last week against the Bulldogs, that was the tank that he brought out a couple of times, so we'll see how this one goes, though. 5A's has managed to take a pretty good position at the ridgeline. They've taken the entire south map control, and Bale's definitely going to be spotted out exiting, so you need to be a bit cautious of not getting bled out. If you see you lose the south control, you've got to take the rest of the north, and Bale's maybe just a little too slow to leave. Should at least cop 1 or 2, but JT's actually bled out a decent amount now, which is not ideal.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a concerning start for Skorpions, especially given the fact that they're on the defense of Sand River. And again, just to reiterate that, this has been a very defensively sided map. Yes, we've seen wins for the attackers here and there, but the expectation is that you should be winning on the defense of this. So if we do see Skorpions feeling a little bit uncomfortable on this defensive side and dropping it for some reason, Matildas could get off to a really good start in this semi-final. Obviously, the damage that has been done, again, isn't really egregious enough to say that Skorpions are going to lose off the back of it, but this is a rather interesting push from the defensive side. Not something you see very often, and normally when you do, it'll be just a single tank, but now it's Knight and Aussie. They're going to try and chase Bales out of his position, while Matildas have got 3 players on the cap, and now Skorpions really desperately have to scramble for a reset.
Yeah, you're going to have to sacrifice one of your tanks, and this is where the STB is going to absolutely farm out on someone. And even the problem here is, I think one of the 5As doesn't mind getting resets, because he's not the one holding the cap points, but really good juggling at the moment. Whoever's getting the resets, either Russian or JT, they're doing a really good job making sure both 5As are tagged up. They're resetting the 5As time and time again. I think that's Russian. That looks about right with the 400 rolls and the timing intervals. So these are really good resets, and the 5As just cannot punish the Udes and the Kranvan in this hold down position. I mean, 12 degrees of gun depression, and now it's a 3-on-2 overmatch. I think
it's interesting.
I mean,
I'm not too sure. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Matilda stick around for that long and take so much damage on the cap for free. Maybe a bit of an overcommitment there from Knight. I'm not too sure. He's down to a 1-shot. Bales and Mary Turner haven't quite managed to convert a kill, and now the cross comes in from JT and Russian. Skorpions had such a massive advantage, but I wonder if they've thrown it away a little bit with a bit of an overzealous push from the 3 tanks trying to find that overmatch.
Well, I mean, how much of a believer are you in the high ground and in Star Wars? I think that's the real question. Because this is not the favorable position to be in, because this is now actually where the Kran, as well as the STB, gets some nice firing corridors. I mean, you want to spread out your crossfire. Mary Turnip needs to be cautious. He's going to be a 1-shot pretty soon. He should be finished off over here. And there it is. I mean, the tank advantage Russia is just full sending it at this stage, but there's 2 1-shots at this point in time for the Skorpions, or close to a couple of 1-shots. Whippet's not part of the fight. Bales, he's not really utilizing that clip too well. So I think the Skorpions have managed to do enough, potentially. But it could be down to another 1-on-1 between Whippet as well as Russian. And that could be another merry-go-round. Whippet should surely be off the clip. Should be able to clean out 2 tanks over here. Get the reload off. And then it's up to Russian to run.
Russian doesn't need to run, I don't think. Kranvagen going to be on the reload now. Oh, bounce off that one from Russian. That's unfortunate and a bit awkward now.
He doesn't have enough DPM, even though we talk about how much damage an Udes can put out. The Kranvan should have enough, and you have to remember with the Udes, the biggest problem is that the fuel tanks are located at the front of the tank. This is not the fight you want to be taking from an Udes. And now Whippet's got the angle. Russian trying to manipulate his way around. Whippet's got 1 left in the clip. Russian trying just to jiggle around the corpse of these tanks at this stage. Trying to maybe draw out a bit of a dicey shot, but Whippet is not going to miss those any day of the week. And that is a big round to be picking up for the Matildas on the attacker Sam River.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. Coming out swing are the Matildas. They take first blood in the semi-finals, and the Skorpions a little bit wounded there, I expect. When we saw the CS63s push forward, and when we saw how long those tanks were holding on the cap, Kev, I was like, I kind of agree with Jordan here. Have the Matildas spend a little bit long. Maybe they needed to wrap around and start unloading quicker. But in the end, yeah, just enough there for the Matildas. I thought it gets down to the 1v1. It's a close way to do it, but it feels like even getting to the 1v1 on the attacking side of Sand River is more than close. You know what I mean? You've already done more than you probably should at that sort of point. And then for Whippet to come through, he's picked up 4 kills as well. Not a bad result there in the Kranvan. Great work there from the Matildas.
Yeah, no complaints whatsoever there. Brawling was just absolutely on. It was, I don't know if it was an intentional bait. So obviously the cap pressure, that's not something that we normally see. 3 tanks on there, and obviously they're getting bled out. But I think this actually forces some of the Skorpions into a bit of a overzealous position. Jordan pointed out earlier in the game where he's gone, hang on a second, has Knight overextended? Has some of these CSs overextended on the side of the Skorpions and actually pushed a little bit too far forward? And you can see they bled so much over there in the riverbed. They weren't really in a good position afterwards to convincingly close in on that position and brawl it out. And all it took was for Whippet to close things out. Russian does his best, man. 4.8k damage.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you got to be looking overall at the team score. You can't really be going, well, these guys are on 2K. That should be enough. Mary Turner is 3.6K. Bells is 2.7. Gets 2 clips off. Whippet gets at least 3, if not 4 clips off. And that's all the difference at the end of the day.
Yeah, looking pretty good. And as you alluded to there, Kev, I think there's probably not much more that you could have asked from Russian in that situation. I'm sure he would have loved to win the 1v1, but he was not in an advantageous position. Jordan, this kind of throws, I'm not like, it's a best of 7, right? So I don't want to get too far ahead, but this is quite a big spanner here for the Skorpions, particularly when it feels like they're quite a heavily momentum-based team, and sometimes when their mental goes boom, it's difficult for them to put it all back together.
Yeah, I don't really know how this worked out for Skorpions because it looked like they were in such a good spot. It looked like they were getting the resets as easily as they needed to. Like, yeah, there was 3 tanks on the cap, but was there realistically any cap pressure actually for Skorpions? Those 5As were getting penned over and over and over again. So Skorpions here, sending it in the 3-on-2. You look at it on the face value and say, yeah, we've got a 3-on-2. Let's try and, overmatch these tanks. Let's try to get aggressive and win the game here. But I don't think it was necessarily required from them, to be honest. I think that the resets were coming through fine. You were bleeding a lot of damage out from Matildas. And what ended up happening was those tanks just get off the cap. They try and roam their way across. Skorpions then obviously have to react and bring their tanks down from the north. And inevitably, it turns into what really amounts to a 5-on-5 brawl where Aussie and Knight are already very low on HP. I do have to call out Aussie a little bit. I don't know how he got no damage done at all. He was in that fight from the outset in the CS63. That could have been a big difference maker. I feel like if he at least sneaks like 2 shots through, for example, I'm sure he had time to fire 2 shots off. They must have bounced. They must have missed, whatever. In a semi-final like this, in such a high-stakes kind of a situation, when the game is this close, you need to be hitting and penning those shots. So, for me, there's a lot that I think Skorpions did well in that game. But they, again, just sort of make one bad decision that sort of throws the game away. So, hope to see them sort of turning that one back on its head. Matilda's looking all right, but it still feels close to me.
It does feel close, and the Skorpions certainly capable of bringing this one back on attack. But this is the map pick of the Matildas? Is that right? So, I don't know. Maybe they got something in store. They certainly seem to make it work then. I can't help wonder, though, that maybe if the Skorpions had just played that one a little bit more slowly, Jordan, they would have come out on top anyway.
I believe this is the choice of Matildas. At least that was what the graphic showed us.
It is, yeah.
Mine was the choice of Skorpions, and then obviously Ghost Town was the remaining map in the pool there. JT already copping a huge amount of damage on that cross. What is going on here? Not expecting maybe that aggressive push from the Matildas. And Kev, I gotta say, if you start off your game on the attacking side of Sand River like this, your chances of winning it are slim to none.
It's Saxon pushing him down in the CS63. He's so deep right now. He's spotted out all these... Like, normally you expect the CS63 to maybe make a run on top of the hill to spot out a couple of things. So JT is probably going, yeah, CS is going to make a run on the top of the hill over here. I'll be safe. They're not going to know where I'm going as a Crime Barn. But I think he makes a bit of a dicey cross and gets punished. Now the re-push is going to begin, but you can see the SDB as well as the bat chat ready to support Saxon. If you do decide to overcommit onto this corner, then the Super Conquerors, the Crown Barn, will have shots in. So, yeah, it's not the best start for the Skorpions, obviously. You can still recover this position, but it's going to be tricky nevertheless.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to do some real hard work to get back into this one. They'll need to find a lot of freebie damage onto 1 or 2 of these tanks. Benefit is that, at least for Skorpions, pretty much all of the tanks that they do have to deal with are congregated around this northern side of the map, so they can get some good map and vision control in through the river. You do have Russian in the bat chat right now, sort of scouting that area of the map out. No movement otherwise from the Skorpions.
I mean, this is not good as well. Just further bleed damage is coming out. Saxon is... I never see tanks this early on the defense in such an aggressive position. Less than like 2 minutes into a game, 3 minutes into a game. The fact that he's already so aggressively up, barely with any... I say barely with any support, because the truth is that if he gets rushed right now, you don't have any firing corridors as a Super Conqueror's Crown Vine. You get a little bit of support from the SDB and obviously the bat chat from Bales, but... Obviously, it's a high-risk, high-reward maneuver, and the Matildas, if they're doing things like this just to get the little edge, like a little extra edge early on, this is going to help so much. If they take Sand River 2-0, sure, it might be their own map pick, and you're going on to your maps like your Ghost Town afterwards, which we know that Skorpions are really strong on. Mines even then, which is like a 50-50. It's starting to look a little bit scary now for the Skorpions, because you're playing not only rounds down, but we know already is that I don't feel like they have that ability to make that comeback. I'm sorry to say this, and this is going to be a good test. I think if they go down 2-0 or 3-0 early on, I think this is going to be a true test for them in terms of not only digging deep, but it should put them then in a really good heading going into the finals if they're able to complete the reverse sweep. And this is not the cross you want to be making, man. I don't know, Jordan. This is just, they're losing so much position. And sure, they can have the repush come through from the north, but the Kronwagens have bled out so much already.
Yeah, look, it doesn't look very good at all for Skorpions. And I have to agree with you. I think if they do go down significantly in this series, which, well, you know, some might say a 2-0 is quite significant in such a short format, but you don't get the same sense from Skorpions that you do with the likes of, for example, Sentinels. You know, even though Sentinels is down 2-0, you always go, well, you know, to be honest, this series is not over. You know, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, because how many times we've seen that team in particular come back from a deficit. Cannot say the same for Skorpions. So they don't want to be getting off to such a rough start, and it looks like there isn't really much that they have to say in the matter, to be honest, because the Matildas are rampaging through Sand River. And yes, it is a good point, of course, that this is the map choice of Matildas, but even going into Mines, that doesn't scream 2-0 to me, which is kind of what you'd want to see in response from Skorpions. So I think they're in a bit of a rough spot. Obviously, it is a longer series than what we do have in the regular season, so there is more time for that comeback, but they're really going to need to knuckle down. I'm kind of calling this one a write-off, though, Kev. I mean, you're down like 3k or 2.5k HP. You've got 3 minutes left on the attack. You have some semblance of map control, sure, but there's just barely any damage going back into Matildas, and they kind of need to find like 2k damage for free here to make this one possible, and they've only got 3 minutes to do it in. So where are your opportunities?
All you need to do right now is tuck in. I mean, the cap pressure is going to begin maybe from Russian. I was going to say maybe the cap pressure, but maybe the push forward. And this isn't a bad idea. If you get into the sniping position around F9, because there's not going to be anything there, you can maybe get a couple of cheeky shots in the Kronvan as well as the Super Conqueror that's not really present. You get the overmatch at the right angles and obviously at the right time. But I think Artie Noob's aware of this already. You can see he's putting in a couple of blind shots. He might have copped a few. He's telling the Kronvan, look, either we need to eventually push or we need to tuck in. We can't really now take this fight near mid, and you can see Russian sneaking these shots in. He's the one that can maybe bring back the damage a little bit further. Maybe Aussie can capitalize as well.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, gun handling's trolling him a little bit. This is what I mean. The Russian is the man to make the difference right now. Bleed out the Super Conqueror as well as the Kronvan enough, and this can actually enable JT as well as Aussie to overdump. And this is the part where the SCB and the Bat Chat can't help.
Well, they have to wait for another 20 seconds or so before they make that happen, because Russian is obviously on the reload. He's going to come off it in 25 seconds now. They need that Bat Chat to be ready to go when that fight eventuates. And so Skorpions, you know, they're going to get themselves into the position to make this push. By the time they can actually make the push, well, I mean, it's probably too little too late, because Matildas have decided to jump the gun. They've done it themselves. Knight is now in a 2-on-1 as well, and Russian is still not off the reload. Matildas recognizing the opportunity that was presented to them by that Bat Chat being on clip, and they have run full force into the Skorpions roster. It's now a 4-on-3. Skorpions running out of time, and Russian only just now scrambling across to try and help out the attack.
Yeah, and Whippet should be able to get back across, and oh my goodness, he puts JT on fire as well, so he's got 2 left in the clip, and yeah, Merry Turnip will go down, but he was a distraction. He was going back towards mid. You just want to make sure that you keep everything suppressed, and I just don't think there's enough time, as you said, Jordan. They had to, not enough time, not enough damage. You can see Russian's got 4 in the clip. Bales has got plenty of time to run away over here. There's plenty enough clip damage for Whippet as well. Saxon can use some of this HP at the meantime. I think Napalm is going to be tracked on the hill. Russian coming up should be able to at least clean up the Kronvan at the very least, but he's only got a single shot left. Napalmer is a single shot. Bales is going to come off clip soon, so I think that's pretty much all they wrote. Bales is going to come across and just go, well, this is the freest damage of my life at this stage. I finally don't have to die.
Yeah,
all you have to do is not cook the situation as Bales. I mean, this is actually really good blocking coming out from Russian at this point in time, but once again, just not enough. Matilda's 2-0. Man, what a start. Sure, it's their own map pick, but taking the attack, taking the defense convincingly like that with early bleed.
Yeah. You can say it's a map pick, right, Kev? But like, it's Sand River, okay? The Scorpions shouldn't be losing the defensive side of Sand River, in my opinion. So, got to give it to the Matildas. They come out all guns blazing, looking very good there. There was maybe 3 seconds at the end of that battle where I was worried that, like, yeah, okay, you're going for some fantasy points. You're probably going to finish it off, but I probably have rather they'd just run away. But they're not scared, not like Sam Ann, and they pick up the victory. So a great start from the Matildas and Jordan for the Skorpions right now. I'd be interested in knowing what's being said in that Discord server.
I mean, I wonder if that was like a bit of a curveball for Skorpions in that they didn't really expect that map to come through from the Matildas, or that because this was not a map that Matildas played a huge amount of in the regular season. Like they only played like once or twice on the map. The same can be said for Skorpions. It actually wasn't a map that I thought we'd get in this one. I thought we'd much more likely to be heading towards something like a Cliff, which has been sort of home ground territory for both of these two teams. But maybe Matildas have been doing a bit of work in the background on the map, and Skorpions maybe putting their eggs in a different basket in the likes of Mines, for example. So, yeah, obviously not a great start, but I'm sort of still prepared to say, yeah, look, 2-0, you can still come back from that, obviously with the caveat in mind that we haven't seen too many comebacks in general from Skorpions. Normally when they're down, they're kind of out. But it's a bit of a different ballgame now, isn't it, right? It's a semi-final, it's a longer series, so I think there's still a chance, but it kind of needs to come in literally the next round. If they go down 3-0, I'm calling it, it's done. But if they can manage to bring this one back to a 2-1, even if it goes to 3-1 from there, like I think you still give yourself a bit of momentum coming through from at least one victory. But yeah, 3-0, not sure that they're going to come back from that one. So yeah, Melbourne Matildas off to a great start. Good curveball of a pick from them, and it certainly seems to have caught the Skorpions off guard.
Yeah, it certainly did, and they've come out really well tonight. Kev, what are your thoughts of the strats that we've seen from the Matildas, both on attack and defense now of Sand River? You're our strat man. I want your 2 cents.
I think you're seeing a fresh approach both times. It's been very, very rare. I think there's only been one time this entire season that a team has actually put 3 tanks onto, I believe, the cap pressure in that way in Sand River, because you can get actually bled out very easily from hill. And this time on the defense as well. I said it earlier in the game, committing the CS63 on Saxon so deep in early on actually takes a lot of map control for the Matildas. And all of a sudden, the Skorpions didn't know what to do. They bled out so much in this cross, and you go, well, why do you have to commit a cross? Well, they have no map position. If you sit behind there with no Crime Barns, like, you're not going to be able to pressure the Super Conk. You're not going to be able to pressure the Crime Barn itself. When you commit to this push, I just felt like this was very segmented. There was no clear commitment. You had Russian in a bat chat that was not in any firing corridor at this point in time. Look at this right now. There is no tank that is sitting there ready to pounce on any mistakes from the Matildas. There's no tanks on the side of the Skorpions that's going, right, I'm ready to punish you for doing this aggressive push. It only came towards the final 2 minutes. And then the Matildas make the correct call. There is a bat chat that has fired at least 5 shots. Hey, let's use this opportunity to commit onto an overdump. Where do we commit on? The tanks that are isolated. Where are the tanks isolated? We've got the Super Conqueror over here. We've got the Crime Barn in the middle over there. And sure, they lose tanks afterwards, but you're forcing and utilizing resources. You're then exposing some of these tanks into an open position. And as a result, you can allow your own bat chat to clear up. You can allow your own CS63, which are very healthy throughout this entire engagement, to clean up. So in my mind, it is a really good dump in. It's a really good call in terms of when to commit, when not to commit. And that's just Matilda. Sure, it doesn't look as convincing as like a 2,000 or 3,000 HP victory. But a victory at this stage is a victory against the Skorpions. You're going to take it either way. 1 HP, a million HP, W's a W.
Yeah, and they look pretty good in both situations, and I think maybe a little bit closer than people were expecting it to be. So this is a best of 7 battles. Normally we play best of 5, but it's kind of like you only play 2 maps unless you need the tiebreaker. This time around, obviously we have 4 maps available in the pool for each semi-final. After pick and bans, it comes down to essentially the 4 remaining maps. So Mines is going to be next. This is the pick, as you said, Jordan, from the Skorpions. I find that this is an interesting pick. Obviously, Ghost Town is the 3rd map in the pool, and I think that the Skorpions probably expected to get to Ghost Town anyway, but there's a possibility now that we don't even get that far.
Yeah, I think it comes down to your methodology as a team and how you want to play the veto out. Do you want to play towards your own strengths or play away from your opponent's strengths and maybe pick towards their weaknesses? And I think in this case, Skorpions have looked towards Ghost Town as, yes, that's one of our strengths. It's definitely one of the maps that we've played really well on this season, but it's also a map that Matildas have had a lot of success on. So maybe we want to throw a bit of a curveball in here as well. as, obviously Sand River was a bit of a curveball from Matildas, in my opinion. Scorpions have kind of done the same with the Mines pick. So for me now, it's kind of a question of how much work has Scorpions put in on this map. And Ghost Town, if we get there with an even scoreline, could be a real brawl. And I almost hope that we get a 2-0 here from Scorpions, just so that we can go into Ghost Town and see a real banger of a map.
Yeah, almost like the full reset if we get that far. But Mines is where we're at. The Matildas 2-0 up in this best of 7. If they pick up both sides of Mines, we're done and dusted. But already, Jordan, on the hill we go. Look at this.
It's an absolute brawl, isn't it? It looks like it might have favored Scorpions initially, but the TVP of Bales just comes sliding on through, does a lot of damage to Aussie. Scorps are not slowing down at all, though. Knight is going to pick up the pace here and force it into a 3-on-2 on the hill, which leaves JT kind of high and dry alongside Russian in that E5 to just try and hold the fort.
Yeah, this trade is not actually coming out favorable on the hill at this moment for the Matildas. They need to dump in right now onto the E5, onto the 277. They're going to lose hill control. They have to try to make this a 3-on-3 as cleanly as possible. That hill fight did not go well for them as a result, and Russian's doing a fantastic job. Now this is where you have to be a bit more cautious. Knight's really leading the charge. I have to favor the Scorpions here. That hill brawl was not good enough from the CS63s. They had the position. They had the ability to bleed out a lot more HP. But it didn't work out for them, and as a result, it's good from the Scorpions. Decisive hill brawl. They had the faster tanks. They utilized that advantage, and it's good to see. Yeah, short Mines. It's we come in and we're already looking at the action. It's already done in a minute.
That's the beauty of Mines.
That's a Mines game in a nutshell.
That's Mines.
You have like a 500-year flyover. So yeah.
That was very quick, and just like that, the Scorpions are on the board. Hopefully, that will settle the nerves for them a little bit, Kev. I must admit, I was surprised, but not surprised to see everyone on the hill within 15 seconds of the game starting.
It's a stock standard. I think it depends on what the defense team wants to bring. If they want to bring a couple more like CS63s and a couple of fast tanks to contest, or if they want to bring a couple of slow tanks. Yeah, I felt like definitely the CS is not getting enough work done on the hill over there. The echeloning was not able to trade effectively. Russian sitting there, hold down. This is a big difference. This is now the Matildas are all farming together. So, yeah, I don't know. That just comes down to just a standard brawl over there for me. I feel like a couple of failed shots coming out there from the Matildas, which just is not good enough, especially CS63. When you have that, you need to make sure you make every shot count. For the Matildas, they need to dump the lower ground a lot earlier on to find that numbers advantage to make sure their CS63s could then come off the hill. But it just didn't happen. And I felt like that's maybe coming onto Mines, maybe not truly understanding what they wanted to do. Maybe it's like one of those rough implementations. Yes, this is what we're going to do, but afterwards, you're not too sure where the micro goes afterwards.
Well, that's it. And that was something that I think, Jordan, that the Bulldogs did so well at the start of the season, even if their plays necessarily weren't always the best play, that once the sort of play broke down, they were very good at making the right call. And this is one of those scenarios, right, where you're into the battle so quickly, you can see 20 seconds on the clock, we're already there. And at this point, it's too late to be making big calls now. You've kind of just got to fight for a lot of it.
Yeah, it looked like it was actually a pretty good setup, I thought, for the Matildas, with Bales in that TVP coming through just at the right time. But I felt like what made the big difference was Knight just decided to say screw it and kind of still send it up. He knew that those two CS63s, they kind of needed a bit of assistance. They had copped a lot of damage. They might not actually win that 2-on-2. So let's just make it a 3-on-2. And he gets across relatively unscathed because obviously Bales is still on the reload in that TVP. And JT and Russian are just sort of sitting there in tanks that are kind of hulled down. They're saying, well, yeah, you can push into us, but you're going to take a lot of damage if you do that. And in the meanwhile, we're winning the hill fight. So ultimately, you're going to walk into a crossfire. Overall, it was those sort of micro decisions made by the Skorpions that make a big difference, right? It's like you have to make that decision in like 1 or 2 seconds, maybe even less, as Knight, as JT, as Russian, as to where you're going to go once you see that brawl start to eventuate on the hill. The two CS63s are already committed. You know that. So they don't necessarily have to make a decision apart from fight as well as they can on the hill. But what the other three players are going to do makes a big impact on how that rest of that game plays out. And obviously Knight making that split-second decision, whether that was a call from him or whether that was a call from the team, do this night, I don't know. But that decision to send him up on the hill helps out 3 versus 2 overmatch. You win the game.
Yeah, and it was a great way for the Scorpions to sort of, settle it down, get some points on the board. They know now they're at least going to make it to Ghost Town, so we can take that one off the cards where they're out of the semis before they even make what I would envisage is their preferred map choice. Kev, the thing with maps for semis and finals in general is that the format for maps is very different, and how we got there, right? Like during the regular season, you pick 2 maps, they pick 2 maps. If the first map was the same, you play the second 2, etc. Right? You're almost always going to get a map you want. Here, when you've got 4 bands to start carving them out, I think it's a little bit more difficult. And I was kind of surprised to see Ghost Town come through. I guess both teams like it. At least now we're going to see it.
I mean, I'm not surprised to see Ghost Town. I'm just surprised that it was actually that deep into the pool, to be honest. This time around, we're not going to see the hill fight, so we might get a bit of an extended battle here on mines, which is maybe good for all involved. Matildas will take control of the hill, but Skorpions, they set up with a bit more of a campy style setup, which is interesting, Kev, given the fact that they do have 2 CS63s. They could have contested hill if they wanted to.
Yeah, not to certain. This is obviously going to be a much more different look. Matildas were gearing up ready for a fight, and the Skorpions just went, nah, we're going to big brain it. We're just going to play a little bit slower over here. We're just going to play the base, play the rotation game with the CS63s, be able to kind of dance around a little bit more instead. And it's up to the Matildas to dig deep and try to figure out what the answer and the solution is going to be. Yeah, you got hill control, but that's not cap control. Super Conquerors will be able to reset any tank that tries to come onto cap. There's CSs, as I said, able to snipe and assist from the back. So you might just have to dump off the hills a couple of the, for the Matildas on your own CSs and go the long way around. Try to take that island control. Try to really pressure out JT, because he's the tank that's isolated right now. So are the other Super Conquerors. If you can sneak one of your CSs to island, that would be a very, very big play.
It's like that's actually what Bales is thinking about doing. He fires a shot off there. Does he get lit? No. That gives him a bit of information. Maybe there's no one over on the island. You probably wouldn't expect to see a defender on that island this early in the game either. It'll be a bit of a ballsy push from one of the CS63s to get that far, especially without being lit by any of the Matildas tanks. So for now, I think Matildas are just waiting for that rotation to come in from Bales. And then they'll start to look for a little bit more of a firing opportunity.
Yeah, this is definitely interesting because what they're showing is like just a single CS63. What I would kind of like them to do is show the presence of all their tanks, because that's going to actually, if Artie Noob was not being spotted over on hill, I think you'd be a lot more trepidatious as the Skorpions. You'd be thinking in your head, hang on, we need to be actively watching the island. We need to be watching for this push at this stage. Could be 2 CS63s, and that's a death sentence. But if it's only a single one, and you can just kind of wait a little bit. Also, fun fact, apparently one of the ANZPL players did not know the CS63 had a turbo mode, which was very interesting.
What?
Yeah.
How can you not know that?
Isn't
that like literally the whole point of the tank?
Yeah, go fast. It's like you're the Polish drift king. You can go from like,
who was
I don't know. I can't remember now, and I probably wouldn't say it on broadcast because that's we don't want to embarrass pro players like that. But someone did make that genuine mistake. They're like, man, this gun handling is terrible. Yeah, okay. You have turbo mode on because your dispersion is going to be not good.
It's like playing a wheeled tank and not knowing it has 2 modes as well.
Oh,
it's kind of like trolling.
It's got turbo mode? You mean you can go faster?
Yeah. Alright. Fairly similar setup, I feel like, from Skorpions as to what we saw from one of the teams playing mines. Was it last week? With one of the tanks in that little dip. It wasn't a CS63, I think it was something like an IS-7, just in case there was a push down the 8-9 line. But speaking of pushes, we're going to get a little bit of a counter push out here from the Skorpions.
Oh, hang on a second. I don't think this is the right push to be making because there's 5 tanks over here, and I think now the Skorpions realize they made a huge mistake. No tanks are rotated at all. JT was trying to find the timing and trying to catch people. Exactly, Bales is behind, but actually there's enough time for them to dump across. Matildas need to all commit on mass and dump right now. They can't allow Bales to be collapsed on by these CSs.
Well, that's exactly what's going to happen in just a second, so Matildas need to make their move. Bales is a dead man. It's just a question of how long he can survive and how much damage he can get out and onto whom he can get that damage before he drops and what the rest of the Matildas can do in the meanwhile. It's a 4-on-3 if we don't account for Bales, Aussie, and Napalmer. And of course, in that instance, Matildas is starting to pull ahead just by a slight margin. Bales is a one-shot away from death. That should be finishable for Napalmer, but JT also will drop to whip it. And now we're back into a 3-on-3. And to be honest, Kev, all things considered, it actually wasn't the worst trade for Skorpions. This is still very winnable, considering they have a Super Conqueror on the field.
Yeah, the Super Conqueror is high up as well. Saxon's on reload. Aussie's dancing perfectly right now, committing and forcing Whippet into a fight he doesn't really want to be taking. They're stuck in a crossfire. This has been so poorly played from the Matildas. I feel like they missed their window of opportunity. They see all these tanks. They need to go right there as the tanks are backing away, but they hesitate a little bit too long, and that's it. I mean, yes, they'll finally get rid of at least Aussie, but he's done enough. He's forced, as I said, Whippet into an untenable situation where he's stuck in a crossfire. And just like that, the Skorpions, a great answer on mines. They'll bring it back 2 apiece. Going on to Ghost Town, we have a series once again. I'm not going to say on our hands because that's a little bit cliched. Yeah, but at least we do have a series. It's not a blowout.
But you can write it on my hands, series. No, ANZPL, let's 2-2. We're here. And we do have a series on our hands. Great to see it. And somehow, look, this might be the wrong take, Jordan, but for the Matildas, I kind of feel like they worked so hard to carve out those 2 victories on Sand River. And like 7 minutes later, we're back and scores are even. I can't help but feel bad.
Yeah, I feel a little bit bad for them. I feel as though the first one, there's not much you can do about that. I think Skorpions kind of just blitzed through them. In this one in particular, I kind of agree with Kev. I feel like Matildas, they had the positioning, they had that initial damage, they really had every opportunity of winning that, but they just didn't capitalize on their opportunity as fast as they should have. Bales wraps around the back in the CS63. You think, fantastic. They've got a crossfire established. Matildas can just dump over to Skorpions, who are pretty much just in a giant ball. But they don't. Matildas just wait, and they give the opportunity, that time for Aussie and Napalmer in the 2 CS63s, who both did a very good amount of damage, to come through, take that 2-on-1 against Bales, pretty much take him out of the fight, and all in the meanwhile, the focus fire is going into JT and into the other Super Conqueror. But hey, we got 2 Super Conquerors. We allow one of them to survive here for Skorpions, and as I always say, if you leave a Super Conqueror that late in the piece and there's a brawl still going, inevitably that tank is going to out DPM pretty much every single tank in the game, especially considering one of the tanks that survived for Matildas was Saxon in the VZ55, so he was kind of on reload. Great focus fire from Skorpions, and a very, very nice turn as well from them. So I thought that was really good, minute decision-making from them in the heat of the moment, and overall, it does enough to get them the win.
Yeah, I do I'm a big fan of that strat as well, Jordan. I would love to see the numbers, Kev, of like, if it's a 2v2 or something like that, and one of the tanks is a super conk, how often does the team with the super conk win from that scenario?
I feel like it's all the time, right? I mean, looking back at this replay, I feel like the biggest mistake here for the Matildas, and I think summarizing the series so far, we're 2-2 apiece, and I felt like I've watched enough, even though it's Mines, which is a coin flip map, as well as Sand River. Matildas, stylistically, they need to try to get ahead. They need to do whatever they can to have these like little leverages so they can get ahead. As soon as they don't, the decisions that you need to make on a micro level, on the brawl level, they're actually poorer in comparison to the Skorpions. The ability to kind of see the go signal, they're lagging behind by maybe a couple of seconds, which is all it takes at the end of the day in tanks for the difference between a victory and a defeat. I felt like they had the position, they had the tanks, they had the opportunity to really overwhelm, but it just wasn't all together. It was slightly segmented. It was slightly separated away. You had some tanks driving in, some tanks that weren't, some tanks firing on one, not really cleaning up targets, whereas the Skorpions, this is just season 1 all over again. JT's been beating them for 3 seasons now with a belt, telling them what focus fire is and when to go. And as a result, you got 5 players with initiative. They're understanding what to do. I did not see that from the Matildas in that scenario, and that is the difference when it comes to an equal level HP brawl scenario.
Well, we've got our 2-2. We head now to Ghost Town, and this is, I think, gents, where it really does get interesting. Both these teams pretty good at Ghost Town. The Skorpions, I think, in particular, had a fantastic record on Ghost Town up until a week or 2 ago. Still probably pretty impressive, to be fair. And there is an opportunity still. Here we are, obviously, with 2 teams at 2-2. If someone can pick up both sides of Ghost Town, they will go home as the semi-final winner. The flip side of that for me, Elfish Guy, is that if we go 1-1, which is not unreasonable for a map like Ghost Town, particularly with both these teams, you go to Prokhorovka, and the win on Mines attacking side from the Skorpions was like, 90 seconds? They're almost undoubtedly going to get to pick side of Prokhorovka. And I don't remember how many, we've seen some close ones, but let's be real. You don't often see an attacking side win on Proc. So I don't know. It's not a bad spot to be right now for the Skorpions if they, as you would expect, can at least find one win here on Ghost Town.
I would agree. I mean, I think there's a pretty good chance we do get a 1-1 out of Ghost Town. It's, looking at the stats, it's like a 90% win rate actually for Skorpions. Like, they barely lost on this map.
Very
but
good.
Matildas have also played a lot of it, and they have about a 55% win rate. And let's be real, 55%, that'd be enough to get yourself one map and push us through, or one round, I should say, and push us through to the tiebreaker map. If we do go through to that tiebreaker map, defensive side of Prokhorovka looks pretty good for me as far as Skorpions is concerned. But, we never know. I mean, it could be a 2-0 still here today for Matildas on Ghost Town. There is every possibility that Skorpions can fumble it here. Same can be said for Matildas. They could definitely go down 0-2 here. In fact, if I had to say which team I would think is more likely to get 2-0 on this map, I would say I think Matildas probably aren't quite as good or quite as drilled as Skorpions are on Ghost Town. It just feels like the Ghost Town is like the map for Skorpions.
Yeah, they played a lot of Ghost Town, and I think they were scrimming it from even before week 1 of the season. They were playing a lot of games on Ghost Town, and we saw them really make the most of it, Kev. So definitely, as Jordan says, potential here for the Skorpions to close it out. We won't need to go past Ghost Town if that's the case, but I want to see the Matildas bring it back. I want to see this go to Prokhorovka, because what we've seen from the Matildas so far tonight, on balance, has actually been pretty good. And I think they've had a fairly good season, and they deserve to take this one all the way, at least to that 7th battle tonight.
I'll definitely have to earn it, though. Skorpions, obviously, no slouches. And I want to see, once again, Matildas. The reason why I love watching them play in Ghost Town is their victories are always very... It's like different to how other teams achieve it. Like, Skorpions achieve it by oppression in terms of map control. It's just like, haha, I've got a better backchat play in Russian. So, Bales is going to have to step up to the mark in that stage. I mean, both equally very good backchat players on Ghost Town. I think some of their best performances this season have been on Ghost Town. And then they've got better brawlers. They've got better anchor players. And I don't think that's a heavy thing to say. You look at the guys that do damage. It's the guys in Super Conks in this map.
All right. Well, we roll back out. This is battle number 5, our 3rd map of the night. It's Ghost Town. On the balance of probabilities, you'd say, hey, this is probably a Skorpions map. They do very well here on Ghost Town. And can they bring this back and pick themselves up to victory? Jordan, it's all about pressure for me and the Skorpions, and maybe they've settled their nerves tonight.
Maybe they have. I mean, I agree. It is definitely a Skorpions map. But is it a Skorpions map so good as to say it's a 2-0 for them? I'm not so sure. I think Matildas could still eke one out. Have to wait and see. It is, your fairly standard setup on the defensive side from Skorpions. Lots of heavy tanks to get into the town. You just have Russian in the bat chat to float around the outskirts. And it's a very similar approach from Matildas, though they do have a 50B on Whippet. So makes for a little bit of a lighter, burstier kind of a lineup from the Matildas than what we've got from Skorpions, because they've also got the bat chat there on Bales as well. They're going to sort of float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, I think is probably going to be the approach here for Matildas until they get a bit of an advantage, and then they send those E100s and Super Conks in.
I mean, it could just be use the E100s and the Super Conk just to shoot face. They spotted out the VZ, which is... I don't know exactly who spotted him. Must have been the E100 going through the city, but I still don't know how Artie Noob spots a VZ55 and doesn't get lit. Someone explain that to me. Like, is there a tree that he's just hiding? It's like, haha, I'm an E100. You can't see me. I'm a tree.
Just a stealth E100. They've got the duck camo, which would make it hard to see, I think.
It's like that comic. It's like the stealth practice thing, and no one can find the AMX-40. All they can see is a rubber ducky. So good coverage so far from the Skorpions. Just making sure that the Super Conks aren't really under threat. They're covering off the usual corridors that you see the Super Heavies push forward. So you can see the Skorpions trying to make sure they're doing whatever they can to just try to get a little advantage. Anything they can. 500, 1,000 early bleed to keep the HP equal means that when you get into the brawls, the clip potential is a little bit less of a thing.
It's a very slow approach from both teams, isn't it?
Yeah, not much really to talk about, because you can talk about how maybe the bat chat's going to be rotating on the 50Bs, but reality is the bat chats, Bales as well as Russian are both trying to capitalize on when someone is going somewhere. So great shot from Mary Turnip. So he's in the side scraping position. He's going to put one straight. Okay, so one thing over here is because the E100 is on the lower ground, you have an easier shot to go into the rangefinder over here. So you can actually, from Mary Turner's perspective, it's easier to go, all right, I've got gold rounds that can either go through the face or into your rangefinder versus a knight who's fighting an uphill battle. You can try to find that shot, obviously, into the face, but the rangefinder shot is a little bit more difficult. Because I think the even trying to go through the face of an E100 with 317 pen is it's a good roll. You have to get a good roll to go through it. That's for sure.
We are starting to see a bit of moving and shaking happening now for Matildas. They've sent their Batchat and 50B toward the southern side of the town. Looks like that's more or less been mirrored by Russian. He's sort of on the southern side as well. I mean, at least on the southern side of the western flank. But three or 4 minutes gone now for the Matildas, and you're going to have to start thinking about getting onto that cap, forcing some pressure through here from Skorpions, because at the moment, Skorpions are sitting pretty. They know that they're on the defense. They know that they don't really need to do too much. Yes, they've bled out one shot, but one shot is not going to make a huge difference unless that's compounded by a couple more. JT also eats one shell. Not able to connect anything back in onto the E100 of Artie. But overall, this is not a bad start for Skorpions. Matildas have used a lot of their time up, and yeah, I mean, they've scoped out a couple of spots. They've got a bit of information. They've got a little bit of map control now down towards the southern side as well, but they're starting to run out of time, and they're going to need to make a move pretty quickly. And here's an opportunity for Aussie. He won't land that one onto Artie. And again, still no damage taken for the Matildas.
I think the problem here, though, is Ideno's by himself. There's no crossfire. There's no ability for the 50B or the Super Conqueror to get involved. So Saxon needs to come across and start suppressing, and you can see he's doing that. This is perfect. You need a Super Conqueror over there just to make sure, well, you got to make sure you're not copying two as well. Now Whip It as well, trying to strike on when JT's coming forward, but JT's not getting proxied. You can see he's waiting over the moment, finding his time to strike. You've got plenty of time to work around right now, but Russian. This is a part where I'm talking about the bat chat fight between Russian and Bales. So important right now. But it looks like Russian is going to be joining up with the rest of his compatriots in the city. And while Bales is actually making his way through the outskirts. And this normally doesn't go too well for the bat chat that's on the extremities, because he's a little bit late to the fight. But a minute left on the timer for the cap timer. And HP is just about still there from the beginning. Obviously, 1,000 being bled over from both sides.
I think the big difference maker here, Kev, is that Skorpions still aren't aware of the position of Bales. He's been able to get this massive flank, and sooner or later, he's going to end up behind Russian, and surely he's going to have shots in on him as well, or even he'll just decide to take the shots onto JT. This is now where Russian really has to spring into action. Man. Bales clipping out. He doesn't know exactly where Russian is, and while you're seeing some good shots come through from the Matildas, and a kill as well, the question is, what's the response going to be from the Skorpions? And to be quite honest with you, Kevin, it doesn't look like there is one at the moment. They're trying to push onto the cap, but what else can they do?
They have to, but the problem is they don't have the tanks for it. You can see it's like the decision that Russian has to make. He actually has to go for that 50B. You have to try to kill that and just ignore Bales. Bales has already done enough, so Russian's going to come across over here. It's going to be, well, Whip It channeling his inner Safi at this stage, trying to drift around corners, trying to get to safety, and just buying this time. You need to commit as the rest of your super heavies. This is the Matildas. You have to go in here. And Mary Turnip's doing the right thing. And sure, finally, Whip It does go down, but then Bales is going to come in. It's going to have that clip. That's going to be 2 shots. He's going to get rid of him. And the Matildas, it just all comes down to the fact that they isolate JT. They kill JT. Then they suddenly, Skorpions go, well, we don't have enough time to stay alive. And that's it. The game's over, Matildas. That is a huge pick-off. And on the attack as well at Ghost Town. 3-2 now. This is starting to get dicey. Really time for the Skorpions to step up.
Match point here for the Matildas, and they do so on the attacking side of Ghost Town. They do so with 4 tanks remaining. Jordan, you were getting worried about the amount of time they took to get there, but when they made their move, they did so with almost full HP and Bales from a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I mean, I felt, again, like it sort of felt like for a while, Matildas was just waiting, playing that waiting game. And then once they pulled the trigger, you could just see Bales making that massive wrap. And I thought, Here's an opportunity for Skorpions to push an issue, but they didn't really find that timing, did they? And then Bales gets a full clip off for free. And if you let a Batchat get a full clip off for free, then, well, chances are that's probably going to win the game for you. 9 shots fired, 8 direct hits and penetrations as well for Bales. That's a really good conversion rate. They obviously had that cap pressure on as well. I don't know. I just felt like there wasn't a huge amount of decisiveness in there from the Skorpions. They were more than happy to play a bit more of a reactive style, which, you know, it can work. But against a team that has players that are going to make individual plays like what Matildas have got, I don't know. Maybe you do need to be the one that's sort of on the front foot. And obviously, that's what Matildas were. And it kind of catches Skorpions this time around. So, yeah, they put themselves into a bit of an awkward spot here where if they do get 2-0 on Ghost Town, then once again, they're not going to make it through to the finals.
Kev, where do you think the Scorpions' mindset was 5 minutes into that game? Like, to me, it looked like they were in a pretty good spot, but very quickly it turned around on them.
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's a lot of these mental mind games in terms of the calls and everything. You can see that JT, normally you wouldn't have if it's out there that far in the field. So they must have been very confident that a Batchat would not have been in that position. So Bales either... JT and Bales obviously playing on that same team before. It's been a couple of years, but maybe JT reads the tendencies of his teammate wrong a little bit. He's trying to read exactly where the Batchat's going to be and made it wrong because all of a sudden you can see just as soon as you lose even a little bit of map pressure, you don't have an overmatch anywhere. This is where the problem begins for the Scorpions. You go, okay, where do we actually go? It's not the cap that's the issue at this point in time. It's the fact that we don't have enough tanks. And it comes down to some of this early bleed damage. It comes down to just identifying where these key tanks are. It comes down to even a bit of RNG. Bales actually gets the Ignite and JT. You can see he gets the Ignite and he goes, well, I'm going to actually focus onto the next target now. And he actually slides then into the Super Conqueror. He doesn't waste another one here. He ignites him. He goes, oh, look, he's low. I've got 3 more I can then put into other targets. And you might go, well, what's the difference between 1 or 2 additional shots? It's the difference between your Hebbers winning a brawl very convincing in the city after after you won the extremities, and so you win it so convincingly by 5,000 HP, or it allows the Super Conquerors to actually overwhelm some of these tanks. But you can see Russian just couldn't really get the effect he needed to because he was caught between 2 minds. You go after a Batchat that's on reload, or do you go into the city and help out your tanks that's in an overmatch already?
It's a good point you make there. I honestly, look, let's be real. I'm probably the by far the worst tanks player here, but I would certainly be baited to be like, okay, I'm going to put one more round into JT there, right? I want to get this guy, make sure he's gone, get a tank out of the battle. But obviously, big brain plays by the sound of things coming out from Bales, and in general, big brain plays from the Matildas. So for them to do that on the attacking side of Ghost Town, I don't know. Every time we count the Matildas out, or it feels like there's pressure on them in a scenario where, hang on, they probably shouldn't win that map. Then all of a sudden, we saw them 2-0 on Sand River. Now they're on the defensive side of Ghost Town, 1 battle away through making their way through to the grand final in 2 weeks' time. Matildas looking very, very good tonight. Can they seal the deal?
Yeah, I mean, they're in a good spot to do it. Ghost Town is one of the better maps in terms of being able to win on the attack versus the defense. It's leaning slightly towards the defense. About 54% of the wins come on the defense, but that's not an egregious margin. What is interesting to me is Scorpions have never actually lost on the attack. The one loss that they did have was on defense. They lost on defense again. They've never lost on attack, and that's what I'd be saying if I'm the in-game leader coming into this one. I'd be saying this is our favored side. We've never lost here, and we're not going to do it today.
I don't know about this, though. 4 tanks right now that's going to be pushing into the playground. And, I mean, this is an overmatch and a half. The 277s and E100s need to get over here ASAP because this is very, very close, obviously, to... Well, I mean, you're placing cap pressure, but that just gives an indication to the Matildas. Well, that's going to be a tank driving through here. We don't have to stress about that. Take this ball, guys. Really good HP juggling coming out from both sides at this stage, but the E100 and the IS-7 is going to come in. Russian obviously is ready for that clip, but so is Bales. I don't know, Jordan. This is not looking good for the Scorpions.
It's definitely not looking good. They didn't have the tanks in the positions that they needed. The Matildas have just sent it. The E100 and the IS-7 leading the charge. Russian in the 50B, just not able to do enough damage from the flank. And ultimately, Aussie gets deleted. Knight is down very low on HP as well. And now... I mean, now this is very much in the hands of the Matildas. They should not be dropping this round from here. They've got a 5-on-4. They've got a HP advantage. Bales is hunting Russian. You can't think of a situation where this goes over to Scorpions.
Is Bales on reload? Because that's actually a pretty big factor over there. The fact that he could be on reload. Can't overextend to that, but he's -2. Bales knows this. Might need the assistance of one more person. Whippet's making a bit of a wraparound, but even just Bales just keeping Russian anchored over here means that he knows he's got the 4-on-3 overmatch. Now, Saxon is copping a lot of damage. Russian's got 2 left in the clip. He is still looking for Bales, but one misses, and Bales is now going to clip out at least 1, if not 2 tanks. Knight, you can see he's trying to dance around JT, trying to get rid of some of these low HP members, trying to at least buy a bit of time for right stage. But I got a feeling this is it, 2-on-5. This is not a good situation to be in. He's got to rid of Bales, needs to get rid of Saxton. That's not going to happen though, and it's all down to Russian 1-on-4 to keep his team alive.
I mean, even if he were to get rid of Saxon, there was just no world where Russian was going to win this one, to be honest. He just doesn't have the HP. He doesn't have the tank to clutch this one out either, and Matildas have played a phenomenal defensive side on Ghost Town and really wiped the floor with the Skorpions. That's insult to injury as well, as the HE shell goes into the back of Russian, and that's the end of Skorpions for ANZPL Season 3. Matildas will be the first team to qualify through to the grand final.
Yeah, massive congratulations to the Melbourne Matildas. They do it in style. They take down the Skorpions. The Skorpions, they seem to struggle in the semis when the pressure is on. They, for one reason or another, don't or unable to step up. I don't know if it's the pressure. I don't know if it's just the fact that, you know what, everyone else steps up when they need to, and the Skorpions they just struggle with that. The Skorpions, to be fair, did have a pretty good season, and they will go through to that third place playoff next week. But as you said, Jordan, the Melbourne Matildas, the first team through to the ANZPL Season 3 grand final, and a pretty good run to the end of the season for them. And to do it on Ghost Town, Kev, I think that really sort of sums it up for me, right? A 2-0 on Ghost Town, and on both the attacking and defensive side coming out with 4 tanks still alive.
Yeah, it just comes down to a bit of a different look. Every single time I see what the Matildas are doing, it's not the same stock standard that you see earlier in the season. It's something very different. I don't think they've done it before. I know some other teams have committed a lot of tanks into a brawl, but they identified, hang on a second, we've got an overmatch over here. They took availability of that opportunity to strike. When it's early on, you're thinking, oh, are these guys setting up as a default? Are they going into a bit more of like an all-in base strategy? So yeah, it's unfortunate, honestly, for the Skorpions, because I feel like it's a story time and time again. I believe they're a team that have the ability to take out ANZPL, able to win it all, but they got to take through some pretty stiff opposition, and you got teams like Matildas who chop and change it every single time. It's always going to be difficult, and unfortunately they fall once again.
They do indeed. It was sort of this point, Jordan, they had the overmatch. We saw a tank go on the cap, and the Matildas just went full send it. You said before the Skorpions hadn't lost an attacking side of Ghost Town. Today they lost an attacking side, dare I say it, in style. They got demolished.
I mean, this is one of those unfortunate rounds, like, where if this happens, if this is the very first round of the game, it's one of those where I come out of it saying, look, I'm not really drawing too many conclusions from that one, because Skorpions just had like an awful setup for what Matildas did there. What if there was an E100? Like, what if an E100 is in that position instead of a 277 or the 277s? You know, you got an E100 and a 277. Maybe that makes a bit of a difference for Skorpions. They just didn't have their frontline tanks in the position. They didn't expect 4 tanks to be rolling into them there. I don't know what you can do, really, short of just not having players in that position. But how do you know not to have players in that position when you don't know that there's 4 tanks there?
You don't know what's there.
It's kind of just like your default setup. You send tanks there. You're like, all right, we're going to get some info scout out here. We're going to send the E100 in towards mid. We're going to have the bat chat sort of roaming around, or the 50B, whatever Russian was in, seeing what he can do. But Matildas, I almost feel like that's a hard read, or like a counter strat, or something that
it's an all in.
Yeah, you know, like they sort of had something prepared there that Skorpions wasn't really expecting.
It's a good all in though, right?
You can't win in that situation as
like,
Skorpions.
If you are 3-2 up, right? And you have one more battle before you know you're going to be on the attacking side on proc. Like, make it that coin flip where, you know, you're not waiting to the end. You're full sending it, you're taking a risk. And the alternative is, if you lose it like you probably would have expected to, you're in a bit of strife anyway. So this is one of those scenarios, Jordan, where for me, you look at it and go, how do we make sure, like, what is the scenario where we're the winners today? And one of those good scenarios is taking a risk on something like when you're defending here on Ghost Town.
Yeah, I think you can definitely take a risk in that situation, especially knowing the fact that you can go through to the tiebreaker as well if necessary.
Yeah.
So I don't mind that from Matildas at all. I think that was a good strategy. You wouldn't pull that out every single day of the week because ultimately it would become pretty readable if you did that. But if you pull it out once or twice here and there in the right situation, catch a team off guard, you almost make it unplayable for them. It's very similar to the win on attack that we saw from Mines from Skorpions, where like Matilda sent it in toward mid, Skorpions sent it in toward mid, but they just sent it in a little bit better. And then there's kind of nothing at that point that Matildas can do. Once they've lost control of the hill, once they've lost those 2 CS63s, they can't dump over.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of same thing for Skorpions. Once they lose one of those 277s, it's a 4-on-5. And you have an E100 that's already leading the charge for the Matildas, and your own E100 still isn't even in the fight. So what are you going to do? You just lose. Bad luck. See you next time.
Pretty much. And that's it, right? You got to play. I know it sounds obvious, play to win, but the reality is you need to play to win the series. And this is the way that they win with the series, right? You don't want to 50-50 it with going it slow. You don't want to give the Skorpions the opportunity, the chance, right, to play it how they wanted to play it. You wanted to play it your way, and it makes sense because the alternative of attacking on Prokhorovka in what is essentially a best of one at that point is not something that I would want to face if I could avoid it. So congratulations to the Melbourne Matildas. They make it through to the finals. Unfortunately for the Skorpions, they do fall once again at the semis. I genuinely thought this was going to be the season where they did make it through to the finals. Today is not their day. I think they still had a great season. We'll see them next week in that third place matchup, and we'll see how they go there. But we're not going to have the grand final that I thought that we would have, but doesn't matter. Again, what we think, gents.
And it's still a good rivalry, Ben, by the way.
Yeah.
If it is Sentinels versus Matildas, I'm sorry to cut you off, but just that first week, Matildas beat Sentinels
the
in
payback.
week 1. So,
and did it in a peculiar fashion as well, that probably the Sentinels only have themselves to blame for. So that could be an interesting grand final. We don't know who's going to be in the grand final yet. We have one more semi to go. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back at semi-final number 2, the Sentinels up against the Panthers. We'll see you shortly.
Matilda's definitely answering the bleed quite well, but the question is, how is Bales going to really utilize his position right now? He's trying to get side shots in, but he needs to be cautious, obviously. He's a one-shot over here as the fight really begins onto Ravi.
Yeah, sold out. Definitely bleeding out a lot of HP earlier on in the piece. Now down to a one-shot. Ravi is pretty close by to that as well. He gets one more in before he'll eventually fall. No, never mind. He might get another one. Let's see how much he can get. Oh, no. Oh, dearie me. That has not worked out for Matildas at all. A nice shot coming through from Soldat. Saves Ravi, and then he's able to take down Merry Turnip as well. And all of a sudden, the Bulldogs are in a very solid position indeed. A 3-on-4.
Okay, this is all going to be down to the brawling potential right now. Or whip it. You can't overextend onto a couple of VZs over there. You've got to have to utilize this hold down position a little bit better. Get some early shots out. But you can see Whip It is bleeding very, very heavily right now.
So is AVP.
Though. Yeah, so is AVP, but he obviously is the person that's designated as the point man, so he is obviously going to be copping quite a bit. But Bowl, this is really good focus fire. I think this one is all over once again. You've lost your spearhead attack going in. You're overmatched at this stage, and there's an SB1 that's not going to be doing anything from base. Yeah, you'll get rid of Whip It, and Madhouse will come in. He'll get maybe a couple of shots off, and then Bolognese is going to come in and clean things up if he gets a tracking shot. So eventually this bat chat will go down. All Bales needs to do is just try to get out of here, but all Madhouse needs to do is land his shots, and he's generally okay at doing that.
Well, he's not quite going to get another one here. At least he's not going to be able to kill Bales unless it's an extremely high roll, which, of course, it's not.
Wow.
So
that's a pretty low,
it's a bit of a low roll
out of
well.
everything.
I mean, not that it really matters. I mean, he was going to go down to one shot worth of HP anyway. So Madhouse has definitely sacrificed a lot of hit points for this push. Bolognese is taking a little bit in response as well. I feel like Mad's at least doing as much as he's taking, and he's kind of trying to uphold his end of the bargain. It is a 2-on-1 for him, so you'd have to think the rest of the guys 3-on-3 might be able to start to pull their way back into this one. However, Ravi certainly seems to be taking this one on his own.
As you said, Matilda's just on the defense. They just need to relax over here. There's no cap pressure. There's nothing else that's really pressuring them.
Here we go again. easy for AVP. No, he's not going to opt for it. I want to see him one-shot an SCV.
Oh,
Yeah, get rid of Bales. That'll make Sandman really mad.
I reckon he'll do 1,854 damage if he pens one of these SCBs. That's my guess.
He's going to ammo rack Bales.
Oh!
1,500. Not quite as good as what you'd hope for. But to be honest, it's a big swing of HP.
Now the Brawl's gonna fight, like they're just gonna find all the individual picks, and Safi's not even involved in the fight. Sure, he's gonna pick off Wymo.
He's not going to pick off
just a mouse.
Wymo. He's not going to be able to pick off Wymo. He doesn't have enough damage in the clip, but he can do some damage to him. You are right, but I mean, the prevailing sentiment, of course, as you say, is he is a mouse. The Bat Chat doesn't really want to clip out into the mouse. He definitely wants to clip out into the 50B instead. And I think that will be, well, it'll be possible for Safi, but is it going to be worthwhile the trade? Speed gets himself his second kill for the round so far. He was the one that initially copped all of the damage, but now it's Soy Milk. It is down to a one-shot. Not that it's looking very close at all.
Oh, that could have been a real opportunity for Archers to lay the hurt into Rainbow nice and early on and allow Safi to rotate for the rest of the map. Okay, this is really interesting where Speed's going into Super Conqueror. Okay, there you go. There's a bleed damage coming out and a little bit of punishment coming out for Rainbow as well, making that really greedy cross.
He got
Really well done
too.
by the 277s. Yeah, Ignite as well. And now Safi can come in and really just do the rest of the work. Sure, Speed's covering him with Super Conk, but he's just bled out way too much at this stage. Rainbow's going to go down to the double Ignite. Now I can hear Rainbow raging in this game. Oh dear, it looks like for the Archers going to have to hope for a bit of RNG going in their favor. Maybe like some damaged modules on these Super Conquerors coming around here. Maybe an ammo rack. And I always talk about this in the most positive manner because they're losing a 5-on-4 if they're just brawling outright like this.
Yeah, I mean, you keep saying the ammo rack needs to come through. The turret needs to explode and land on someone. I don't see it happening, to be honest, Kev. Archers are getting pummeled. Rainbow in the 50B gets the better of Return. Wymo and Cindy starting to make that push happen up on the flag. No cap pressure at all for the Archers and Sentinels. Well, they're well and truly going to be walking away with a win in this round as well. They just have to trade blades down and try and hope that that 1-for-1 is going to be enough. Cindy, to be fair, in his own right, is doing a pretty good job of just surviving for now.
He's going to force these tanks into position, so him just tucking in like this is actually going to be very, very solid because at least you can get some trade damage in. You can make sure you get some bleed across, but he is eventually going to go down. Return, if he turns his turret, that's going to be another problem, right? Because he turns his turret, which means at least it's susceptible. Yes, Cindy does go down, but he's bought enough time for obviously the rest of the tanks to really get into action over here. Speed's going to cop one in the side. Nice roll from the 277. Where is Rainbow? He's actually leading the charge at the moment. He wants to utilize his HP. This is really nice balling coming out from the Sentinels right now for the Archers. You need to hope that your focus fire is going to be on point. Tracks just drive by.
Hey, Russian is actually in a bit of trouble here. He's been absolutely boomed.
Yeah, Slayer, if he can actually, that's really, really good. Like, vision coming out from Slayer, making sure he gets rid of the Bat Chat, and all of a sudden, this is a brawl which is working back in the favor of the Conquerors, because the CSs have not really been part of this fight. Raspberry, a single shot's going to take care of him. Slayer, he's actually been low-key playing very well this season, and just maybe with the 277 and Benny being ammo-racked, this could be a chance for an upset victory on Tundra, because remember, this is the attack on Tundra as well. Critical, one of the sharpshooters of the season. You can see why he's penning all these shots at the moment in the brawls.
It might still be doable. Depends on how these fights do sort of go. Aussie is leaving Benny out to dry a little bit here, but Buff Hamster, I mean, inevitably he's going to run out of time, so he has to move quickly. Critical has to go. They have to go onto Benny, but they don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why he hasn't gone. That's the problem. Critical needs to get rid of Benny, but he's just gone a little bit too late. Buff has done fantastic in this position, honestly. And Critical's going to get ammo racked at the worst time. Aussie, oh no, he's going to go for the ram kill. Oh, there's a single shot.
Skorpions are really bleeding out a lot of HP though. Let's be real, Conquerors are sort of going toe for toe with them. Super Conqueror of Aussie has a damaged ammo rack now as well, which means he's going to be putting out less damage. And against an E100, that's a big deal indeed. Slayer just backing up, trying to preserve his HP. Russian will drop in the mouse, and right now it's a 4-on-4. Scorpions having a significant HP advantage, and it looks like they've found the overmatch as well. 3-on-2, unless Tuck can go absolutely ballistic and somehow Slayer can survive, it's just not winnable for the Conquerors anymore. And it's 3-on-3. I mean, this is very close indeed. Name Palmer is in a great spot to farm. Tuck, who's been set on fire as well. It's really coming down to the wire. I've got no idea which way this one is going to go. I have to imagine maybe Conquerors walks away with the win. Having two fairly healthy E100s makes a big difference. maybe a little small advantage into the semi-final. I dare say something to do with the selection of vetoes or something like that. JT's going to get into the mix pretty early on in the piece as well in that VZ55. It looks like a great start here. What a difference it makes for Skorpions.
Yeah, I feel like that's GG as well. Just like I said, from the attacking side, sometimes you have the right tank composition. You can really start contesting some of these areas nice and early on. Now they've got hill control. They've got this lower hill control. Slayers, he can't really even do anything at this point in time. And Russian just absolutely clipping out. I think this is it. Skorpions will take the series.
Now that Val's been spotted, Panthers are going to start to get that info through, and the shots need to come in as well. Nice connection from the Super Conqueror and from Dastardly as well, by the looks of things. We have the CS63 of JS chiming in. But Dastardly can't get another shot in. And now JS is going to be the one under a little bit of pressure. Dastardly will not opt to move out of his position just yet. They're going to try and focus down Shanky Pants. JS has to move back around the rock, and shots are coming through onto him. He's down to a one-shot and eventually killed. Very nice, decisive push from Action X, but the question is, has it cost too much HP, particularly given the fact that Dastardly is still surviving in that IS-7, and he's going to be a tough nut to crack.
Out comes JS in this single shot tank. They need to get rid of this Crown Vine before we can get the clip off, but JS maybe going a little bit too quick, too fast, too furious, and he's going to go down. He had to wait for the VZs potentially before they decide to go in a little bit further. Dastardly, of course, is going to be off clip. That's one of the tanks cleaned up. Now the focus fire coming through. Val is coming into the equation. Pro Loser has a decision what to make. Will Val turn around in time? Absolutely will be able to do so. He should be able to get the killing blow as well. Pro Loser should be able to trade that one out. So it's down to a 2-on-2. Two autoloaders up against the single shots. And unfortunately, there's no good situation. I think Adelaide Action X now doing the correct thing, making that pressure on the back of Zanin. Shanky Pants, you know the tanks are going to be on clip. Twit bounces his, and I think that's it. I think the priority here is you let the Crown Vine actually soak the shots, and then you let Zanin go in. Shanky Pants needs to preserve this HP, I feel like. Here we go. Here's the commit that's coming forward. Shanky Pants going to come across. He needs to duck back. He needs to allow the Crown Vine to just overcommit right now and allow Olin and Zanin to really do the rest of the work and just really count your timing as well. It does look like the killing blow is going to come out from Zanin, though that said, the return fire from the SB1 is going to be fantastic. Goober's now coming forward. He'll be able to get rid of two tanks over here. Oh, this is not looking good already as Goober is lining up Shanky Pants, who will just get to safety.
They do need to really ensure that this cap pressure continues to get...
Welcome back to ANZ PL Season 3. It's semi-finals time. We've already had one upset tonight. If you can call it that, I think it's an upset, right? I think we all probably expected the Sentinels to go through, but the Matildas certainly stood on up and make their way through, and deservedly so. So they will be in the grand final in 2 weeks' time. We'll find out very shortly, I suspect, who the team that they'll be versing will be. But before then, I just want to go out there. Look, I think it's only fair that we check the caster predictions after the first match of the day, just to see how everyone went.
Oh,
Look at
Ben,
that.
I actually think they got yours and mine mixed up. I actually predicted Matildas, and I remember you writing in Discord, you predicted Skorpions.
I could see Discord and you didn't write that, Jordan. You're a liar.
I can actually confirm Sandman actually wrote Skorpions. Yeah. Something's gone on.
Yeah,
Maybe
definitely.
I have to-
It's definitely
Yeah.
production who screwed up and not Elfish Guy and kept picking the Skorpions and getting it wrong. So,
I mean, you can take a look at my predictions for the last couple of weeks on what I do with every Skorpions match, so you can take it as you will. But all I'll say is I'm actually the true winner in terms of the Twitch points. I just wanted to say, I think this is the third season in a row that Elfish Guy has once again lost points in the semifinals.
Oh, yeah. Well, look, I mean, at least it was only 430 points today. I didn't have a bank of like 11,000 or something because I lost all of those points earlier on in
at least you didn't lose 100,000 last week, but I could have had so many points after that if it had gone my way. Anyway, the next matchup, our second semi-final of the night, it is the Sentinels up against the Panthers, and the Sentinels looking to make it back to back to back, Jordan. This team, they've looked good all season long. They looked good all last season. They looked all good season one. I don't know if anyone can even stop them at this point.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's probably a fair statement. I don't know. I mean, I think Panthers is an outside chance. They're an outside chance, but they're not a very realistic chance, in my opinion. And obviously, if it goes through to that grand final, I would give Matildas a bit of a better chance than I do to Panthers today. But I still would say I think Sentinels from here is the favourites to win. Whether it was going to be Skorpions or Matildas through from the other semi, I probably would have still predicted Sentinels. So take from that what you will. But yeah, I mean, I think they're a team that, again, they sort of had their struggles a little bit earlier on in the season. They had some awkward games. You sort of see that here. They lost to Matildas to start off the season 2 and 3. They also lost to Action X. But aside from that, it's been a pretty clean run sheet. Even the 3-2 against Skorpions, you give them a bit of credit there because they were down 0-2, and it was a nice comeback victory for Sentinels. So that shows a lot of tenacity and grit to sort of come back into a series like that one. I mean, so apart from that, yeah, like I'm thinking, I mean, 4-0 right there on the board for them against Panthers in regular season. Could be a 4-0 today.
This is going to sound like a dumb comment, and I'm going to say this dumb comment and throw it to you, Kev, for your feelings. But this Sentinels lineup could have very easily gone 7-0 through the regular season. And there's only a couple of hurdles there that stopped them. The first one, we know about that. And then losing the tiebreaker again against the Action X, that very much could have gone the other way. This could have been a perfect season for them.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously in hindsight, and I don't think that's a stupid thing at all. I think that's a fair thing to say. You always have to look back to week 1 for the guys that are joining us because, you know, from all our fan favorites in Europe and North America and obviously in Asia who are looking here for the drops, I mean, in week 1, it was maybe some people would argue it's a technicality or whatnot. They did drop the series, could have taken it 3-1 at the end of the day, maybe 3-2. But look, I still think you had to give it to the benefit of the doubt at the time, obviously, to the Matildas. They still got the tiebreaker victory. They're in the finals for a reason. It's not as the Matildas are being a shabby team.
Yeah.
And looking at Adelaide Action X, that was a fantastic week for them. That was when Val first came in. I think they were really popping off over there. And maybe Sentinels just a little bit slow to react, playing a bit too stock standard against how sometimes Adelaide Action X playing very, really revolutionary. Remember this clutch? I think Weimer had a go at me. It's like, why weren't you hyped, man? Like, it was all up to his 1-on-2 situation. I'm like, it's Rainbow. He wins the clutches. There's no reason to be hyped. Skorpions versus Sentinels match is just hype. I think this was really the match of the season. I think this just really delivered it on all regards towards like the end of it. It's like, I'll still look back and I'll go, if there was a match to define season 3, that could very much be it. The finals would have to be that much better just to beat that matchup.
Well,
so, yeah, I think they could have gone 7-0. I definitely agree with you. It's just, once again, the great IGLing, new strats coming in towards the later half of the season, and fundamentally very strong players. It's a hard combination to break.
yeah, and can I just say there, by the way, and maybe this is going to sound dumb too, but like, if the Skorpions don't lose, if they don't get reverse swept by the Sentinels, they end up first seed, they don't play the Matildas. And maybe they play the Panthers and make their way to the finals and through the semi instead of losing like we saw them happen just before, all down to that one reverse sweep. Nevertheless, let's take a look at the Perth Panthers. Kev, I'll go back to you because, well, fair's fair. We'll let you start one off. The Panthers lineup, a couple of weeks ago, they were pretty much all but out of it, right? And we had last week this kind of story where, you know what, we could get to the end of tonight and the Panthers are still a shot. And we got to that point, the 4th match of the evening, and the Panthers did something pretty incredible. Like the way they brought that back, the way they won it on maps that we didn't think they would probably win, and to get the full victory against the Action X was a pretty impressive result. And I don't want to compare and say the Action X are equivalent to the Sentinels, but a week ago, I probably wouldn't have said that the Panthers could beat the Action X like they did there. So who am I to say that they can't do the same thing tonight against the Sentinels?
Yeah, this is Panthers. Obviously, I feel like they've really not only improved in form in the last couple of weeks, but I think week 3 is a good indication. And even watching their games, it's a good reason why sometimes the scoreline is not indicative of the series overall. Like you look at that series defeat again, of the 0-4 against the Sentinels. If you look at a 0-4, you go, wow, man, Sentinels much as it completely crapped on the Panthers. But that wasn't the case. That was actually still a close series. Yeah. There were tight games. It was just the Sentinels came out on top at the end of the day. That's how they got the 4-0. It was obviously a great Amarak on defense suite. Amarak him out of the league. So I think that was his one and only appearance so far in ANZPL. But yeah, it's very much the case of I'm looking at that and going, it's not I feel like in the last 4 to 5 weeks, their performance has been improving so much on the back of JS being a very, very capable IGL who is not only making some fantastic calls, but also individually performing. And as a result, the Panthers are popping off. I don't think the Panthers did that last season. JS did not perform and call to this level.
The Panthers, I think I'd kind of ridden them off from week one. I'm gonna be honest with you. And Jordan, I don't know if you kind of felt the same way. They never really felt like they're on the radar, right? You play Skorpions week one, okay. The Archers were looking very good in week two as well. You play the Conquerors, you get a victory. Like, okay, well, these were the two teams at the bottom of the leaderboard, and then you back that up straight away with a loss to the top team on the ladder, right? All of that to me is okay. That's expected. That's how it plays out. But then they see the Bulldogs, and this is kind of the beginning of the end for the Bulldogs. Kind of feel like the Panthers ended the Bulldogs season, and we just didn't know it yet.
Maybe they ended their whole careers. I don't know. I kind of agree with you, though. Like, I mean, it's hard to say. Like, it's not. I don't think it's really fair to say after 2 weeks that you kind of count them out. But when I see a team go 0-2 in the first 2 weeks, it doesn't even necessarily matter who they're playing against. I just see that and go, oh, that's going to be tough to come back from. You're probably out of the picture, in my opinion. And then they go on to beat Conquerors in week 3, and you think, well, yeah, they've got a win, but it was against Conquerors, who also hadn't got a win up to that point, so that doesn't even fill you with the whole lot of confidence.
I took nothing away from that at all, except that these guys were probably 7th and not 8th.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought I thought they were pretty done. I thought that, maybe it was going to be Archers to take that 4th spot. If not Archers, then Action X, who had gotten a win against Sentinels. That was a result that filled me with a bit of confidence. But ultimately Panthers do everything that they need to do towards the latter end of the season. And they really start to get it together. I think that's kind of the big takeaway for me, is that they went from being a team that just sort of just rocked up and played and looked like they had no idea what was going on half the time, to a team that actually was legitimately quite good. So today, they definitely deserve to be in semi-finals, but are they good enough to beat the Sentinels? I don't know that is something that I would be leaning on them to do. But
yeah, it's another step, isn't it? Like, it's one of those, is it a bridge too far sort of thing. The pressure was on them, though, last week. Like, it was one thing to come out with a victory, but we didn't, like, the fact that it was a 3-1, we didn't go to overtime. They had to win it on a 3-1. And where did we end? At Sand River or something? And they come out with a pretty impressive attacking side of Sand River and somehow managed to put themselves, in line for making it through to the semi-finals. So from a pressure perspective, and this is the game we're looking at here, from a pressure perspective, not just did they step up with their gameplay, and as Kev said, JS with his calling and all those things, but the same thing that we talk about some other teams struggling with, and that is the pressure in these scenarios. For some reason, the Panthers were able to deal with it. Now, I don't know if that's because they can. I don't know if that's because it's one of those things where you feel like you've nothing to lose. Hey, we're probably not going to make it through to playoffs, so let's just play our best and see how we go. But there has to be a point within that where you start realizing, hang on, we really do have a shot. And when that mattered, they came through with the goods. So I can't count them out at this point. And that's the thing, right? Kev, the Sentinels, it's.
I mean, I can. I've already predicted points for the Sentinels, so I've already counted the Panthers out.
You predicted that the Panthers win. What do you mean?
No, I mean, I'm playing both games. So over here, if I predict on the C, this is a smart thing. So you predict against opposite. So you always can bag the victory. It doesn't matter which way you go. So you can lose.
Right. Okay. So you're playing both sides of this. So you're guaranteed to lose. Let's bring up our big 3. Right. So because it's semis, it's not just the big matchup. It's the big 3 matchup. So Kev, talk us through this big 3 matchup now that you're guaranteed to lose on both sides.
I mean, if I win points, that'll be fantastic. I can steal more of Elfsha guys' points.
It's true. You can go and spend those points at the store, right? Wait, no, never mind. Sorry, keep going.
Oh, that'll be implementation for next time. I will let Ben also spend his prediction points elsewhere. So, look, I think 2 IGLs, you have to give it towards Rainbow over here a little bit. He's had the flexibility and the capability to... He also, I feel like, has a stronger core behind him. Like, I'm looking on paper, sure, Twit and Goober are good players, but you're looking at Speed and Wymo. I mean, Wymo and Rainbow together have played for how long? How many trophies they have again? Speed's also come in and had a fantastic season throughout Season 3. He's been really one of the big performers of the Sentinels. It's like, yeah, sure, the total damage is over there towards JS, towards Twit, towards Goober, but once again, I just feel like there's a bit more synergy going on over here. It's a tight matchup. Honestly, I don't know what else to say beyond this. I think this is going to be a good rivalry. I feel like I want to have a series that goes all the way between both of these sides. I don't think it'll go that way, but a man can dream.
There are two options here. Let's go and take a look at the maps, and we'll sort of quickly break this down before we do get into game. Jordan, as we take a look at what we're going to play, I think there are two possibilities here. Either this goes all the way, we make it through to Himmelsdorf tiebreaker, which I think is a great map for a tiebreaker, by the way, or the Sentinels put the Panthers in the bin and it's a quick 4-0.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, like I said, I think probably 4-0, in my opinion, is the more likely result out of the two options there. I just think Sentinels is too good. You know, we've seen them on Ghost Town. That's a map that they're very, very, very solid on. So I'd be expecting a 2-0 there. Prokhorovka, a map that obviously has been in the pool since the start of ANZPL. It's been a map that's existed throughout the entirety of World of Tanks. And I think that they're probably a pretty well-drilled team on that one as well. I don't see how you could be this late in the season and not be solid. So, you know, even if it does go all the way to Himmelsdorf, like, let's entertain that possibility. I know there's some very, very strong heavy tank players on that Sentinels roster that if they do get put into their comfort zone, Himmelsdorf looks like a map that they should win as well. So I wouldn't be predicting a favorable result in any of these maps for Panthers. And I think that's just because of the strength of Sentinels coming into this semi-final.
They're looking pretty good. We predicted, Elfish Guy and I have the Sentinels. Kev's got the Panthers. All we know is that one of these two teams is making their way through to the grand final. In 2 weeks from now, they're going to go head-to-head with the Melbourne Matildas. The grand final we haven't seen yet. I'm keen to see how this one plays out. I'm ready for the Panthers to step up tonight as we head on to Prokhorovka. But the Sentinels lineup, Jordan, as you said, they have had like a pristine season. They look so good. They always look good. They step up when they're under pressure, and I'll be really surprised if tonight goes any differently.
Yeah, me too. But I mean, Panthers, I like this pick from them. I think Prokhorovka, it's been one of their better maps this season. They have an 83% conversion rate on the map, whereas for Sentinels, it's a little bit lower down in the pecking order, although across the board, Sentinels are pretty good on every map. So I still think this is probably the best option you could have gotten as Panthers. This is an interesting little engagement, though, between Twit and Rainbow. Unfortunate for Twit not to be able to land a shot there, but I guess it's difficult sometimes on a T100 LT. But now that he's been spotted out, he's starting to get picked apart a little bit, and no damage coming back through from Panthers is really bad news.
Yeah, I was hoping they could get a little bit of bleed damage into here. I mean, Twit does get into the hold down position eventually. The reason why Rainbow goes so deep over there, he's a bit unlucky to get spotted out. He's not expecting the IS-7, is because Soy Milk's lit. When you get lit as a Super Conqueror, you know the Tier 100 LT is making the railway run as opposed towards the 1-2 line push. So it always comes down to understanding, once again, when you're getting lit from, what the common positions and what the common scouting positions are. Prokhorovka, you mentioned it earlier, Jordan. It's been played time and time again. I wonder what the fun fact for Prokhorovka is, if we have one. Is it going to be something like, do you know this was an actual battle site between the Russian army and
tell us
German
about
army?
the tree, Kev.
Tanks.
Tell us about the tree that's not really a tree but is a tree.
There we are. See, there you are. There's a little fact there. The tree that's not a tree. It's around A3 somewhere. Doesn't look like a tree that's been knocked down, but it can also not render correctly.
That's epic. That is epic.
That's how you know when NZPL people take their time to find these little not exploits, but probably like the little things you go, hang on, we want to try to utilize this bush. Does this one work? What happens with this one? Does this get scouted? There's a lot of detail. It's not just sometimes teams just trying to commit to something and just full send it. Oftentimes it's very much based on patterns. It's based on rotation timings. You try to figure out what works and what doesn't. And now, of course, they've got another island control. They've got mid control. The IS-7 for Twit is just, well, it's kind of just by himself. He bounces off the T100 LT, but I think that's from JS, because I don't think Dastardly could land that shot. I don't think he's good enough player to land that shot at the distance. So,
wow, that's toxic. Yeah, overall.
You know what toxic is? Is saying that my mum's going to get put in the bin, Jordan. That's toxic.
I never said that. I don't think.
No, but Dastardly did.
He sounds like a very rude man. Lightning Man has got himself a friend on the cap in the name of a corpse that he can hide behind.
I think that's Kev.
I'm not dead just yet. Might be going to some better places, but I'm not going just yet. Okay, push into middle here. and the bat chat from Goober needs to be in the right position to farm this. It's an okay crossfire, but you have to try to commit into one of these targets, and the tricky part is, well, which one do you go into? Do you get rid of JS because you want to send him home? Or do you go over towards the railway side? And it looks like they're going to try to commit onto JS, but it might not be JS that's going home. It might be Wymo.
Well, it might be, but some of that damage dries up pretty quickly. Dastardly eventually does find his man, but you have to say JS should be going down here as well. Speed and Cindy will eventually overwhelm. My question is, Soy Milk in that Super Conqueror, how much of an impact is he able to have up in A6? The angle doesn't seem too favorable for him at all, and that means there's an overmatch for the Panthers. They have picked Sentinels apart on the defense, and it looks like they'll walk away with a win on their attack. It is just Rainbow and Soy Milk left alive. The cap pressure, it doesn't matter at all. It was the brawl, really, that brought that one unstuck for Sentinels.
Yeah, I mean, and now this is just Lightning Band's going to hunt down Rainbow at this stage. And look, this is the same scenario. We're looking at a 2-on-4, but this time they don't really have the tanks for the playmaking at this point in time. Normally you're looking at the playmaking tank, there's a bat chat in play, there's something else, but it's just a T1 and LT, and obviously Lightning Band and Rainbow is going to have a little bit of a chat over here. Lightning, because he's so healthy, decides to go in for the ramp. But at the end, doesn't matter. Has to be an ammo rack from Rainbow for this to work out. Not going to happen. Rainbow... Lightning, do you want to land your shots, dude?
Yeah, I get in that situation, just like still moving, because you're like, oh, this is going to be done. There's another one from Lightning Man that goes missing. But I feel like if you're in a competitive game like this, you really just have to stop and make sure you're going to hit and you're going to pen, which is inevitably what Lightning Man does do.
So Soy Milk is trying to get over to the island over here, and I wonder if that's going to be identified. But this is a fantastic start from the Panthers. Really, I mean, the Sentinels made the correct call, but they weren't expecting the Panthers, I think, to be split up like that. And all of a sudden, it's like, wait, you can't have a person that's low down over on one side of the rails and then another person over there. Normally, you're meant to be on both sides of, like, you're meant to be both on the same side of the rails, not split up like that. And I think they just got confused, and they went, well, which one do we go for? Well, we're going to go for JS, right? Because Dastardly's not a good player. And that was the bait. JS, once again, just too smart. Understands the rationale. This guy's thinking 3 steps ahead.
Insult to injury here for Sentinels as well. Panthers are not even going to chase down Soy Milk. They're going to just say, well, we'll just get ourselves on the cap and win the game that way. There is now 0 chance that you can win from this point.
Why risk it? You're going to go up 1-0 on Prokhorovka. Like, why not make it a convincing and clean one? No point doing a Bulldogs for Season 2 finals where you have such a huge advantage. And I would say this is, you can't lose this advantage, but this is the 100% way of winning. There is no way you can lose. And I think that's the correct call. Even though it's a boring end to a pretty good victory, look, a win is a win. And I'll say that to the end of ANZPL.
And it's a great win too. The Panthers pick up first blood here tonight, and what a surprising turn of events for both of these matches. That the underdogs have come out and picked up the first battle of each of the semis, and again, maybe, you know, the Matildas, I thought they had a chance, of course, but the Panthers, like, not going to get too far ahead, but that's the great start, right? It's one step at a time. Take each battle as they come, Kev, and attacking side of Prokhorovka and doing so in style. 4 tanks left alive. I like a boring finish from the underdog because it means they're playing smart.
Yeah, for sure. And that really just comes down to, I'm looking at more and more, I honestly think it was JS's position. That's the undoing it. They're not expecting that at the end of the day. Darcy actually top damaging over there with the Super Conk. Well, he's the one that's staying alive, obviously, and he's hitting a lot of those shots, which is fantastic to see. You need those Super Conks to be firing on all cylinders, all memes and jokes aside. And obviously, JS, goes down early, but he's done his job. He puts the Sentinels in a really awkward situation when all of a sudden they think they've got a really good overmatch. They're going to get into a good position. It wasn't the case. They didn't realize where the second Super Conqueror was. And as a result, it's all over from there.
Yeah, it was over very quickly. He saw the bat check come through. They kind of full send it, got the overmatch, as you said, and it was kind of done and dusted from that point, Jordan. When I look at how they played on Prokhorovka, they're actually not bad. The Panthers do like this map, right? I think they've got 100% win rate on defense. Attacking side, a little bit different, but still, they seem pretty comfortable around this map, and I'm not going to say I'm surprised it came all the way through, but they certainly made the most of it.
Well, they did just win on the attack as well. So if that's considered their weaker side on this
It
map.
is,
And
yeah.
they're setting themselves up for real success here. A 2-0 start would be fantastic. It doesn't necessarily make a win overall. It puts you in a good spot, but you've still got a lot more work to do, and Sentinels are not going to be pushovers. So that's kind of the thing for me here, is that Panthers is off to a good start, but how many times have we seen teams get off to a good start against Sentinels and then not convert the win? Skorpions did it this season. They got a 2-0 lead, but they ultimately lost that series 3-2. And in this instance, Sentinels has even more time to come back into this series if for some reason they get 2-0 on this first map. So I'm not prepared to get too excited just yet. Like, it's great. It's a fantastic win for Panthers. I'm going to take that away from them. But I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. I don't want to get too overzealous here. And I think Panthers also need to sort of recognize that fact that, the series is still very young here. It's only one game down so far. And a 1-0 lead is a good start, but that's kind of where it ends. It is just a good start.
It is a good start, but you got to start somewhere, right? You either start losing the first battle or you start by winning the first battle. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't think that the Panthers would get a battle. And then if they were to get a battle, it would be the defensive side of something where you should probably want on defense. The tricky bit here for me, or the bit where I want to see the follow-up, is now that they've drawn that first blood and the Sentinels go, oh, hang on, guys, we probably, let's not let this get away, right? And that's where they come back now and win their attacking side. If the Panthers can make this 2-0 after one map, even if it is their map choice, that's when I start going, maybe this is going to be a little bit closer than we thought it would. It's already getting there, but let's see what the Panthers can do on defense. It's their better side. I think they haven't lost on defense of Prokhorovka so far this season.
It's a good start, but it's the same stat that Skorpions had on the attack of Ghost Town, and that was broken 20-30 minutes ago. So let's not draw too many conclusions just yet, Kev. We have to wait and see what we're going to get on the defense here from the Panthers. Are they going to be able to find that 2-0 lead? What a fantastic start that would be. It's a very heavy lineup out from the Sentinels, with the exception being obviously Rainbow in that T100 LT. Has been spotted early on, so he's going to have to cancel his scouting run.
Lightning can sneak a shot in if he wants, or a shot into
He does.
Yeah, because you double bush there. You're free to take a shot. That's already a really positive start, and you can already see, I think the Panthers are doing their work. They're doing their research, and they're trying to make a couple, like, we always talk about this in other titles, right? We talk about cutting corners where you have to take a couple of risks or whatnot. We've seen the Matildas earlier cut some corners. You need to come prepared and take a couple of risks as well. Maybe get lucky on a couple of timings, and that's one of the pristine ones. Normally you see a T100 LT go a little bit further. Lightning Man decides to play it a little bit more patiently. So once again, the map control is going to be conceded, or the right side is going to be for the Sentinels, and the left side is going to be the Panthers.
Yeah, IS-7's up on the hill. Not something you see every day, but they're moving pretty quickly. Once the IS-7 gets rolling, it is definitely one of the quicker, heavier tanks around.
There's a lot of things. We're looking at what they were adding on as attachments these days. It's oftentimes your Grousers, your turbocharger, oil, just to make the IS-7 move, because it just has that better durable upper plate armor. And it has that trollish lower plate. The 277, it's like, yeah, it's got funny angles that will help you ricochet occasionally, but there's still nothing as solid as an IS-7 at the end of the day. So look, they're going to commit over here towards the 2 flag. The Super Conquerors are over here now applying a little bit of pressure. That's where Darcy is going to make his rotation in. This is where the STB1 and the other Super Conqueror on the side of Twit as well as Goober is going to be pressuring. And now this is, I feel like, down to the T100 LTs, trying to suss out where they're going to be going. And this is going to be a really good mind battle between Lightning Man and Rainbow, two very, very capable light tank drivers, trying to guess where everything is going on. Eventually, Cap Pressure needs to go down from the IS-7s. You can posture here for all you want from the Sentinels, but eventually you're going to have to create something. And Darcy, I have to be saying, is hitting some fantastic shots. The Soy Milk should not be playing that aggro. He's bled out 2 shots like that, and that is not the start that you want.
Yeah, that's not really acceptable, especially considering the T100 LT is already bleeding out HP earlier on in the piece. So not only now do you have a bit of an advantage in that light tank duel, if that ever comes to pass, but you also have some pretty significant bleed damage onto one of the heavier tanks that's trying to hold the fort for the Sentinels. Looks like they're going to try and push the issue, though. They recognize they're going to have to do something about this. They're slowly but surely losing this game. Let's see if we can try and sort of flip it here and give ourselves a bit of an advantage. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Wymo just gets absolutely smacked as he tries to go over the rail. And Panthers trading effectively.
Yeah, Goober's bouncing a lot of shots. I think you just have to leave the SW1 for dead over here at this point in time and allow Twit just to do as much as you can. You need to actually just overdump mid right now. Get the Super Conquerors into the position where they get rid of Soy Milk, they get rid of speed, and as a result, then you can play around. Twit actually decides to get rid of Rainbow, and he crosses over to the safety of the rest of his team. The Super Conqueror as well as the IS-7 in mid are still very, very healthy. You can't say the same, unfortunately. I mean, for the rest of these tanks... And these are some great shots coming in from Twit. He's stayed alive for so long, and Cindy bounces one that's not good. It allows Twit just to stay alive for a little bit longer, maybe to go over and get the dump shot across. So even though the double tag comes through, it doesn't look like he doesn't get across the rails. JS staying alive for now. Lightning cleans up on Wymo at that distance. That's not a shot you see every single day. And now Lightning can use his HP, but things are still close. Or that Amarak, though, changes everything.
Lightning Man will be able to clean speed up.
And that's it.
It is just Cindy, 1-on-3. I mean, theoretically winnable. Realistically, probably not.
Darsley is playing out of his mind. Like, he's hitting the shots he needs to, and this is what I mean by Panthers. They're peaking at the right time. They're making so much of these good calls. Like, I'm watching that North fight and going, man, if Goober's actually hitting shots, this would not even be close as well. I think Goober bounced 2 or 3 shots onto the IS-7 there. But now it's like, yeah, Cindy has to commit into this, and he has to make a decision between either IS-7 or a Super Conk. Lightning is going to be coming up from behind him pretty soon. Yeah, this is, I have to say, a much closer game this time around. But Panthers just doing everything right at this current point in time. JS does go down, but it's just, I guess, a little bit of icing right now on the cake, as Darsley does bounce one, gets one into the track. But Lightning Man has the speed to come across, and you just go hold down over here on the IS-7, and that's it. Darsley, the one to clean things up. 2 games in a row from him, where he's done a lot of damage, and Panthers up 2-0. Almost the same as our first semi-finals.
Yeah, this is a little bit of deja vu, and again, I expected it maybe in semi-final number 1, but certainly not in semi-final 2. The Panthers pick up both sides of their map choice, so a great start from them. Lightning Man doing a ton of work then. I think he pipped Rainbow at the start. He did a ton of damage throughout the battle, and he doesn't take any damage himself in a T100 LT. So not a bad result at all. It did get a little bit close there for a bit, Jordan.
Yeah, it did. It did. I mean, ultimately, I think it kind of always looked like Panthers should win that one. They forced Sentinels to make a bit of an awkward decision by pushing over that rail track. And at that point in time, if that push didn't work, game was probably over. And, well, that's kind of what we saw. Sentinels, they made it relatively close as they could have, but Panthers were in the lead from the outset from all that bleed damage that they'd done. They put so much pressure onto Sentinels that they forced the error in a sense and walk away with a pretty comfortable victory. So overall, yeah, have to echo Kev's sentiments. Dastardly having a good day here in that Super Conqueror. 2 4K plus damage games. Very, very impressive start from him. You really love to see the fact that Panthers is getting off to a good start as well, because, you know, if this series is to have any legs, I think it definitely needed to come from Panthers getting into a lead. And now that they've done that, you know, maybe we do go deep. Yeah,
well, Himmelsdorf is on the cards after this one. Dastardly, we saw, played very, very well there. Love to see it. Kev, I want your expert strategy knowledge again. What we saw from the Panthers, obviously everyone's preparing for the semis. Like, I think a lot of work's probably gone into these battles. But what did you think of what we saw from the Panthers? Obviously it worked. Did it deserve to work?
Oh, for sure. I mean, just patient play on the defensive side. You don't overcommit on your light tank. You try to see if you can get one of these tanks to overcommit. You then take the right positions. You can see over there, it's like, look at how they're breaking into formation after they spot it out. They're splitting into a 2-2-1. They're covering all their bases, and they immediately understand, hang on a second, this fight's going across. They're dumping over. Then we need to take this mid fight. There's none of this hesitation. They're just going straight into the tanks that you need to. JS is leading the charge. They then get all, like, you know, the Super Conqueror, the T1 and LT in the right positions. They're trading, they're echeloning really well. It just comes down to, I feel like that wouldn't even been close if Panthers were actually penning a few more shots. But when you're versing IS-7s, that's where sometimes gun handling and everything, it gets a bit trollish. You're going to bounce a few more shots. So, yeah, for me, ultimately, at the end of the day, I do feel like it's just down to the Panthers. They're getting this little edge at the beginning. the slightest edge. You're damaging the enemy tier 100 LT by 700. It doesn't sound like much putting Rainbow down to 800, but it gives so much more flexibility for Lightning Man to play around. And it also just destroys your chances of actually committing to a 3-on-2 overdump, because all of a sudden, where Rainbow could actually overcommit through and be an absolute nuisance on 1500 HP and force you to actually look at him a little bit more, all of a sudden he's only a 3-shot. So he's actually not that much of a threat.
I think it's even more important when you get to semis, right? Because theoretically everyone's so much closer. And again, maybe I counted the Panthers out a little bit too early here, because they got that advantage that they needed to, and then they didn't let it get away. So often we will see teams do that, get that advantage that you're talking about, but not be able to follow through when it matters in the next 7 minutes of the battle. The Panthers, though, potentially one ghost town away, right? A 2-0 on ghost town away from making the semis. I don't want to, go too far here, Jordan, but we are going to ghost town now. And between Ghost Town and Sand River, the Sentinels are going to need to find 2 points on one of those maps, right? They're going to need to win attack and defend to take us through to Himmelsdorf. So
I've got a statistic for you, Ben.
Okay.
I want you to guess how many rounds of Ghost Town,
Ghost River.
the Panthers have won this season.
Of the five battles I assume they played, I think they may have a 0% win rate.
I think they may have a 0% win rate as
However,
well.
Tonight is the night, Jordan. If there ever was a night, if there ever was a time, one chance, one shot, you know what I mean? You got to take it.
Well, this is the time, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
if you're not going to win for the entire season and you're going to pull it out at one point, you get to choose one time during the season to win on Ghost Town. Tonight is the night. I agree with you, Ben. But I'm not liking their chances. This is a pretty decent map for Sentinels. They got a 66, 67% win rate. Whatever, round it up, give them that extra percent. That's fine.
Yep.
On this map, pretty solid across the board on attack and defense. So push comes to shove, if they do drop one, equal chance to come away on the other, and at least ensure that we go through to another map. I mean, you put those two against each other, you look at the histories between these two teams, you have to say, if there's anyone that's going to get a 2-0 here, it's going to be Sentinels. And to be honest, I would be surprised if Panthers even got around. Unless they've been doing a lot of work on Ghost Town, which, as you say, again, semifinals.
I want to see the full send.
Every possibility.
Give us an overmatch. Give us a coin flip where it's like, well, if this doesn't work out, we lose this battle. However, if our opponents are in the spots we need them to be, maybe we bring those odds in our favor and we get out of Ghost Town 1-1 with a couple of percentage points. We head back in. I hope you're all enjoying yourselves. ANZPL Season 3. It is our semi-finals. We're so far through the season. Who even knew? How do we even get here? It feels like we just started. Spam HyperX in chat. HyperX been supporting us all season long, giving away 60% custom alloy keyboard, ! HyperX in chat if you want to learn more. Otherwise, just spam HyperX where you're running out of chances to win. The Sentinels slowly running out of chances to win themselves, though, Jordan, but they do have a couple of shots here, and Ghost Town ain't a bad shot to take.
Yeah, look, 4-0, is it on the cards? I don't think so, but maybe Panthers can continue to impress. They already surprised me with a 2-0 on Prokhorovka, to be honest, Kev. And here we are now with Sentinels having a 0-2 deficit and a lot of work to do to come back into this series.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a part, if you're asking me, this is not the case of the Sentinels playing lackadaisically or anything. This is just the Panthers actually playing so clinical. And I wanted to say, this is the part where I'm going, it's like those shows or whatnot, like Season 1 or Season 2. Like, JS is like the MC or the main character. He's a bit of like a weakling, we go, haha, JS moment. He's getting tracked by Goober. What a silly boy. And then he just gets, like, jacked during a season. Like, he's just gone, you know what, I'm sick of getting bullied. And he just goes through this massive training arc. I'm not saying that's what happened with the
Hyperbolic time chamber.
Hyperbolic time chamber, he decides he deadlifts, he pumps irons all of a sudden, he pumps more than Wymo can. I have a good on suspicion that Wymo can actually probably deadlift 100 kilos, if not more. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, the storyline writes itself from a team that we gave absolutely nothing. It's like, at the beginning, I think we can go back and we look at week 1. What are the teams that you think are going to be at the bottom of the league? Maybe Conquerors, because I don't feel like on paper they're too strong. Maybe the Panthers, sure, they got a couple of upgrades, but will it be able to be completed? All of a sudden, I mean, even if they lose the series right now, 2-0 in Prokhorovka, and still making the series competitive.
Yeah, a lot of credit
It means they're not a weak team.
Yeah, credit. For sure, for the Panthers. But, you know, the series is not over, and it's not lost yet, and it's not won yet. So all those discussions can be had after the fact. Right now, Panthers just need to focus on getting themselves a defensive win on Ghost Town. I think they just have to take this one round at a time. You know, if they get this one, 3-0 lead, they're one round away from picking up a win. Reverse sweep, of course, still possible for Sentinels in that case, but you really put a lot of pressure back on them. Not that they haven't already. So Panthers is in a very good spot here, but Batchat of Goober up in A4. I feel like he's going to have to start making his move relatively shortly. There's a lot of info right now for the Sentinels. Or rather for the Panthers as to where the Sentinels are. Goober can't quite get himself set for a shot there onto Rainbow. But what is interesting about the setup for Sentinels, and it's something that they do a lot on Ghost Town when they go towards these heavier lineups, is that they don't really have the ability to control the outskirts of the map. So Goober's kind of free in that Batchat to make any sort of rotation that he really wants.
Yeah, it's just down to how well you can kind of suppress some of these angles right now. And this is what Rainbow's trying to do. He's trying to threaten the fact that he's going towards this one flag, trying to draw some of his attention away. But I don't think the Panthers are really solved. They've got Goober who's watching this angle. He's going, guys, nothing is really committing. I'll spot it. We can play the rotation game afterwards. Because when he makes his cross, he's going to get lit again. So here we are. It's an open cross over here. Lightning Man misses another shot, but JS needs to be cautious of not overextending because he's going to get caught by two Super Conquerors if he does decide to do so. You can see how wary of that potential he is. Look at how far back he's going as well. So, and he won't be caught out in position. Darsley decides, no, it's go time at this stage. We've bled out Wymo so much at this point. Rainbow's come in now. JS is also swinging around to join the rest of the boys. And
Rainbow's going to get farmed by Twit.
Well.
Yeah, look at that play from Twit. It's just too good right now. Panthers are the ones that are in the perfect spot. They recognize that they've got the position that they need to. They've got those resets, and they're just going to back up a little bit, wait for the Batchat to come into the picture. Rainbow gets deleted, and Sentinels are now fighting what is essentially a 4-on-4 until that Batchat arrives, but that's only going to take another couple of seconds, so they have to get a lot of work done right here, right now, and I just don't think it's possible. Twit around behind, puts Wymo to a one-shot. JS and Darsley still fighting in the mix, and now Goober arrives as well. This is the death sentence for the Sentinels on their attack of Ghost Town. The Panthers are poised to go up 3-0. Some trades coming back through for the Sentinels, but it is just not enough, Kev. The HP advantage is there, the tank advantage is there, the gun advantage is there, and there is everything playing into the favor of the Panthers right now.
Yeah, I mean, what can I say about that? If you hit the names, you hit the colors, you would have said that was the Sentinels that was doing the bleeding, doing the balls correctly. They just had all the tanks in the right position. And come on, guys, you got to give Darsley the ace at this stage. He's got 4 kills already. Surely you allow this man to clean up. Like, just even look at how they position their tanks. Lightning Man, he'll tag down low. They put him behind the rest of the tanks. They put him behind to force the overcommitment. They don't have any auto loaders. And it doesn't matter, you have the HP disadvantage at that stage. This has been so convincing for the Panthers, and this is on their defense. Like, you sure? Yes, their defense side. It looks like Darsley won't be able to get the 5 kills at the end of the day, but they're up 3-0. But it's 3-0, and this is where the Sentinels, you can never count them out, okay? That's the first thing I want to say.
This is a regular season game. They've won the series. They've won the series if it's a regular season game.
Do I have this? Hello? Production. I think you've had the team names and colors around the wrong way for the entire game. Because there's no way the Panthers are 3-0 up in the semi-final.
Except they are. And, like, that's my little bit of fun on the topic, but I don't want to make fun of the topic because the Panthers are playing so well. I don't know how we got here. We kind of saw them work their way up to this point through the season. And we talk about form, Jordan, coming into playoffs in form. And it's not like the Sentinels aren't in form. They've been in form all season long. They're very rarely challenged. But this Panthers team are looking so good right now.
Imagine being a 2-star pick and then just dropping 4K literally every single game in the semifinals.
Against the Sentinels.
That's Dastardly right now. Yeah, against Sentinels, no less. I don't know if anyone picked Dastardly, but if you did, congratulations.
Yeah,
you won
any
fantasy.
Dastardly pickers in chat, let us know.
I don't know what to say. Like, that's just, even outside of like Darsley popping off or anything, I mean, they just didn't get enough done. I think it was like Rainbow's trying to sell a rotation, but Panthers, they're just not biting what the Sentinels are doing at this stage. I have to say, this is a different Panthers. I think if you look at week 1 of Panthers to the Panthers of now, it's 2 completely separate teams. They are nowhere near the same caliber. There is no way, man. I'm lost for words.
What has changed? Is it the calling? Is it the individual plays? Darsley obviously stepping up quite a lot tonight, right? In the first map, he did the same thing. Here again now on Ghost Town, looking very, very good and almost picking up 5k damage there. Almost getting the ace as well in the E100. Is it positioning? Is it skill? Is it... I don't know, Kev. Tell me.
I mean, definitely a little bit of skill, right? He's hitting some fantastic shots throughout the entire evening. He's put into these tanks that have a lot of roles to play, but they're playing together. Panthers are playing together as a team. And this is where it's like, you learn a lot sometimes from your defeats where you're going, when do you go in and when do you not go in? And this is a prime time. Look at how they're positioning. They're all wrapping around. They're not panicking just yet. They're just getting bleed shots in. They're just getting chip damage after chip damage. Then they're falling back. Look at that. They're 3 together. They're taking fights together. They're forcing tanks into a crossfire every single time. It's not a favorable engagement for the Sentinels. The Sentinels are trying to get Panthers to overcommit, as you do on the attacking side, but the Panthers just do not bite. They wait, they get the numbers. Yes, the focus fire is good from the Sentinels, but the difference this time is Panthers have 5 tanks ready to brawl it out from the get-go. And that's the difference. Sentinels are so good at finding the numbers advantages a lot of the time, but the Panthers this time, they don't bite. They decide to stick together as 5 tanks, and they work that to absolute perfection.
You know, if you could play this game where you've constantly got 5 tanks and your opponents don't, I think that's a pretty easy way to win. So I like that strat, Kev. You're a smart man. You should play more tanks. Yeah.
I think it's the way they do it though. It's because it's a high pressure environment. It's you don't know what Rainbow's going to do next. I think that's the most like stressful part. So for you to stick to your guns and make the correct call, that's not an easy thing to make.
Well, Rainbow's got to do something here. Someone from the Sentinels needs to stand up, because right now this Panthers lineup, the team that was going to end up 7th in the league, is 1 battle away from guaranteed $5,000 and a slot now grand final up against the Matildas. Jordan, we know the Sentinels, I'm not going to say they like to reverse sweep, but of all the teams, they're the ones who are the best at it for sure.
That's true. I certainly hope that Rainbow is not firing up steam right now, because I would be globally offended if this was a 4-0 for the Panthers. Goober has been spotted, however, and it does not seem as though Rainbow has. So this could be a little bit awkward for the Panthers if Goober gets run down by the IS-7.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to find him at this stage, and Goober just needs to get out, but you can see he's not getting out here. He's dead. There it is. There's going to be all these Super Conquerors over here. Goober's just going to get shot to absolute hell. He has to make a decision on where to go in, and the problem is there's just no good decision at the end of the day. He's going to at least lose...
Oh, there's a little bit of brief respite here, but for how long until Rainbow finds an angle? They need to really scramble here, the Panthers. They need to get him out of trouble, and they need to do it quick.
Yeah, you so much. Those buildings are eventually going to be deleted. He's going to realize there's going to be a couple of tanks over here. Goober's actually playing fantastic at the position he's given. You need to utilize the rest of your tanks to try to overwhelm right now. That's exactly what's happening. Goober eventually decides to try to make a breakthrough at the same time, trying to stay alive, but he gets tracked up. Great work from the Sentinels to get rid of the dangerous bat chat early on, and in begins the 4 and 5 now. This is what I was talking about. The Sentinels are so good at finding these initial fights, but how much damage can be done from the Panthers to try to bring this back?
Well, who's going to get the kill on the speed? That's the real question. JS is the one to slide it through. It is now back to a 4-on-4, but the HB is certainly there for the Sentinels. And the IS-7 does arrive. Rainbow is here. It's now a 4-on-4, but a massive advantage in the terms of the health pool for the Sentinels. And this time, it works out. On the defensive Ghost Town, the setup that Sentinels have, they make it happen. If you can get that IS-7 on top of the Batchat, it's always going to be curtains for Panthers, and that's essentially what we saw. Goober did a decent job of trying to survive, and he survived longer, to be honest, than I thought most people would. But end of the day, you know, you sort of sacrifice your Batchat for absolutely no gain at all. And while he probably got his whole clip off, it wasn't in the fashion that he wanted it. And now, we're back into a bit of a discussion around Sentinels potentially making a reverse sweep happen. I know it's only one round there, Ben, but it's the start of something.
It is the start of something. Is it the start of something great, or is it just a delay of the inevitable? Obviously, it is not inevitable at this point because we know how good the Sentinels are, and we've seen them time and time again come out with these reverse sweeps, right? But we go from Ghost Town, which is over almost before it started. I expected that one to last a little bit longer, but it is done and dusted. And now, with just 1 point on the board, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, Jordan, but with just 1 point on the board, the Sentinels find themselves in a situation where they need to 2-0 on Sand River, a map that the Panthers 2-0'd last week.
Yeah, look, I mean, there is still a lot of talking points. I feel like at the moment, you probably still say that Sentinels is definitely looking like the team that should walk away with the win here. But Sentinels, I mean, it's so hard to go past the Sentinels. Even when they're down 1-3 in a situation like this, you just know that there is a world where they come back and they cause
if
a bit
you
of a
can
ruckus
do it against the Skorpions, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Time and time again, you can do it against anyone, you would think. But this Panthers lineup, they are on a roll, to be fair, and it's a lot to reverse sweep. It's even more to reverse sweep in a best of 7.
I just wonder if the roll has been stopped. Do you know what I mean? Like if the fact that they have now lost this has opened the door just enough for Sentinels to again just get that momentum that seems to send them through the rest of series time and time again, and if it's enough to stymie all the momentum that the Panthers had up to this point.
They went 1-1 last week before picking up 2 on Sand River, right? So it's not even really like they had the momentum in week 7 when they managed to beat the Action X. Kev, I'll throw it back across to you. Goober, he did get caught out quite early. I think he played that kind of well. It was probably about as good as he could have played it, to be fair, once he did get caught.
I mean, he was a dead man for sure. I think it comes down to the case of the Sentinels. They had to take a bit of a risk somewhere. I don't think Goober even realized where he got spotted from. The fact that it's like one of those weird cases where like an IS-7 outspots a bat chat or something like that, and it's not as if it's like insane equipment that you got for it. It really kind of it's a bit of a question mark on whether Goober recognized the danger he was in. At that stage, once he got into that trench over there at A7, that was it. I felt like Panthers couldn't really even get him out there, let alone win. So I feel like it's good from the Sentinels. You can see this is exactly what the IS-7 is designed to do. It can easily win a one-on-one against these bat chats. It can easily get into a speed where it can test the same positions that you want in Ghost Town. And it succeeded this time. Last time it didn't. This time it did. So it's not going to be, I feel like, as big of a factor when we come into the next map, obviously. So like Sand River, I don't think you'd be playing the IS-7 in the same capacity. You may want to, but with so much terrain, you'd rather be playing Crown Barns. You'd rather be playing Super Conquerors, I feel like. So, look, still in with a chance to the Panthers, but I won't be surprised if it goes all the way to Himmelsdorf as our tiebreaker as well.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that at the top of the night, right? That this could very much, if the Panthers step up, go all the way. But the next map is Sand River. Now, when you talk about Sand River in the context of these two teams, I think Sentinels actually have not played Sand River all that much this season. I think maybe they've been there once, and they went 1-1, probably winning a defensive side and losing an attacking side. The Panthers, I think there's only so much you can take from the Panthers season stats, because the Panthers of weeks like 1-4 are, to me, an entirely different team of the Panthers at the moment. And for them, their current form is far more relevant. And last week it was on Sand River where they stepped up and they got the 2-0, which allowed them to make their way through to playoffs. So for me, Kev, right now, this Panthers lineup, I think they can't, there's short of winning there, which I don't think was reasonable. They couldn't have found themselves in a better position than they are right now. I think if they could have gone into tonight and guaranteed that they would be 3-1 up going into Sand River, they would take that every day of the week.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you take 3-0 even as well. Going 3-0 nice and early on gives you a chance at least to fight for the right to go into the finals. And the reason I say fight, I mean, we always draw parallels once again because We all commentate different games over here. I'm going to draw one, obviously, towards the Renegades, an Australian team that goes overseas. And they had that tenacity. They could never get put down. Doesn't matter how bad. Like, they could be down 1-10, 1-11 in a score line. Like, almost the equivalent of being down 0-3. Like a death sentence. It's like the Grim Reaper's knocking on the door. But they just able to pull out things time and time again. And that's what I see from the Sentinels. The same quality, the same tenacity, the same drive. They just don't want to lose. And I think that's always the hardest team to beat, is because they put so much pressure on you. They've done it before. Now, all of a sudden, there's a huge wall in front of you as the Panthers, and you're going to have to break through it.
I was hoping we were going to make it to Sand River, Kev, so we get this far at least, and we know that the Sentinels, if they want to be our back-to-back champions, they need to 2-0 here on Sand River and make their way through to Himmelsdorf as the tiebreaker. Jordan, as we head into the game with everything on the line, would this be the first time that the Sentinels get knocked out during the playoff stage of ANZPL?
Very much could be. Very much could be. They're the back-to-back champions, but right now down 3-1 in their semi-final. It's not a good look. Panthers, they just need one more, and they are absolutely sending it. No holds barred right here from the Panthers, Kev. They have decided that they just want to press that W button and try to take the fights. Dastardly stops right in front of a Kronwagen, though, and that's going to eat up a lot of his HP. Hopefully, we'll see some trades back through here from the Panthers, but to be honest, I'm not sold on it so far.
Yeah, they need to dump in, and they need to be convincing. They should understand the VZ's clipped out, but they just haven't done enough damage. And I feel like this is where the mediums up north, JS, I think, is realizing there's a bit of a threat over here. He's going to meet two SDBs, and he goes, well, I can't really do anything now, unless he ammo racks one of them, and it changes the equation. He's damaged the ammo rack on one of them so far, but as a CS, I don't think you ever win against two SDB ones.
No, you don't. I think this is where you start to get a little bit concerned for Panthers, because for the previous round, okay, we go Ghost Town. Yep, that's an anomaly. That's fine. But if you come in and you just get absolutely demolished here on Sand River on the attack, yes, I guess that's a fair discussion point. But even still, you know, that's 2 in a row for Sentinels. The momentum, confidence is starting to build for them, and you just think maybe they can put together a good win on the attack. Game's not over just yet, though, obviously, but it's not looking very good. JS is about to be finished off by those two SDB ones, and from there, it should be relatively routine for Sentinels to clean this one up. And we've seen this strat a couple of times where you sort of just send 4 tanks towards the 2 flag, you keep a tank back. In this instance, it was Twit over like near D2 and see if he can find himself an angle, but I don't think I've ever seen it work.
Yeah, the reason why is that terrain is very difficult to play with. As long as you've got a tank coming in from around like the F9 position, he's got covering shots in there. The tanks from north can overdump as well. So what you need to do is like just go in, play the ridge lines, and really just delete one of the tanks before they're in position. But you can see the Sentinels, the default set up for that to punish it. And all of a sudden, 2-3. Now the Panthers have to withstand the Sentinels attack, and this is where things really get dicey for them, because you don't know what Rainbow's going to pull out of the hat.
I don't know. For my sake of my fantasy league, I hope it's something good, because I've got Rainbow up there and the rest of my picks haven't done so well tonight. But it's still the attacking side of Sand River coming up. That was let's chat about that one, Jordan. It was over almost before it started. Dastardly, who had been the hero of a couple of battles so far tonight, caught out in the IS-7 and unable to do anything. I guess the same with Goober there.
Yeah, look, I think when you put yourself in a position like that one, you walk into a crossfire like that. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty unfortunate. Look, to be fair, Dastardly had to have one bad round at some point. And he's finally had one there where he's just got no damage done. So I guess that makes up for all the really solid rounds that he did have. But I am starting to get a little bit concerned, if I'm being honest, Kev. Like, I'm seeing the Sentinels start to get a little bit more comfortable. I'm seeing Panthers starting to sort of make some weaker decisions, I guess. They're not really looking as solid. They're not looking as well drilled anymore. That one to me just feels like a full send, and that's kind of a 50-50, you know?
Yeah.
It either works or it doesn't, but it doesn't give you many opportunities or options if it doesn't work.
I think the fair thing to say as well is like, this is what we were talking about all-ins before. I think this is what an all-in looks like when it fails. We always talk about, wow, that was a sick all-in because it works. But in these longer extended series on a best of 7 where you got the ability to kind of pull a rabbit out of the hat, when something doesn't work like this, you can see the reason why it doesn't work, because the default that's designed to punish these all-ins works an absolute charm. You got your Super Conqueror and Crime Barn at mid. You've got your 2 mediums up there, north, ready to rotate in. And that's the reason why this got hard counted. Now you can imagine if there was another STB down south as an example, maybe an STB over at mid instead, this could have been a different story. You have the immediate overmatch on the Crown Barn. The Super Conqueror isn't there to help out, but you can see this is set up absolutely perfectly from the Sentinels. It's designed to punish any early aggression like this. This is the reason why teams run it on Sand River. And I mean, from that point onwards, it was pretty much all over, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're pretty much done and dusted at this point, and there's a lot of dust, let's be real, here on Sand River. So that one didn't work out. Essentially, the full send from the Panthers, and within 5 seconds of that brawl kicking off, right, you could tell they were in a bad spot, and then JS drives up to see what's in along the A line, and he gets found by a couple of tanks up there as well. So not a great place to be in. Jordan, you say, okay, the Sentinels seem to have found their groove now. Maybe, they took a couple of games to get into it, but this is where the pressure, I love that. This is where, what a great shot. This is where the pressure is for me though, right? The attacking side of Sand River for every team. To be fair, I think we have seen more attacking side wins this season than probably most other seasons, or at least I think it was only added in season 2 anyway, right? So I feel like it took a while for teams to work out Sand River 5v5 attack. But it is getting closer now, and we are seeing more of them. Having said that, I think it's still pretty difficult. So what will the Sentinels have in store? And more so, if you're the Panthers, are you going to try something unconventional again? Are you going for that coin flip? Or, you've let this map through. You played it last week. It worked for you. Are you going to try and play it smart and maybe try and drag this out to the end? Particularly noting that I don't think the Sentinels have won an attacking side yet. So if you can make this one slow or slower than at least the Prokhorova attacking side win for the Panthers would get choice of side, I believe, when we go to Himmelsdorf.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still think Himmelsdorf is a pretty scary prospect for the Panthers, just given how strong Sentinels are as heavy tank players, and the fact that would have been 3 in a row for them going into that tiebreaker, and that's sort of reverse sweep territory, and we know how good Sentinels are in that kind of a position. So I kind of think it has to be here and now, Kev. I don't want to see this go to the tiebreaker. If Panthers is going to get the win, I think they have to do it on the defense of Sand River.
Jordan, what am I watching them do right now? They're grouping up and ready to dump mid.
It might work out for them, to be honest, because you still got 3 tanks down super far in the south, and Sentinels have not even spotted this one. Panthers are going to get the info first. They're going to have 3 tanks against 2, and surely Cindy and Soy Milk are just dead.
I mean, they have to be, right? A little bit further up and make these shots really, really hard, but this is where Goob is in a position to farm from the town. The focus fire not there just yet. The Granvan needs to start putting fire on.
No way.
No, this can't be how it works. Okay, the dump is going to be coming in from the other side right now. Going to be spotted out. So 3 tanks onto 3 over here. Now the Kronbarn can't help out. Lightning needs to get into the fight. So does Goober. They need to use your HP. Darcy, you can see, is trying to buy time at the moment. They need to get the focus fire across. Need to get rid of one of these STBs. They're the DPM threat, and that's what they're doing right now. Rainbow's on a single shot. Twitch somehow is still alive. I think they're doing it, Jordan. It all comes down to this. Wire on speed. Backs against the wall. 2 on 5.
Never let it be said that ANZPL is predictable, because it seems we may have got it all wrong. Sentinels came in as the massive favourites into this series. Panthers were a team that did not even find a win until week 3 of the season, and yet here they are, storming toward a grand final placing. Speed and Wimo stand between them, but I don't think they're going to last for too long at all. It is now just Speed, and he's gone, and Panthers will join the Matildas in the grand finals of ANZPL Season 3. And I've got all of my predictions wrong today.
That's incredible, gents. That is absolutely incredible. Congratulations to the Perth Panthers. JS, the saviour of Western Australia, brings them through to their first final, eliminates the Sentinels, who have never been eliminated in a semi-final before. Their reign as champions ends here. They will not be the Season 3 champions, and they do it in a way, Kev, we said, is this going to be, are they going to try and play it quote-unquote smart? Are they going to, traditional perhaps is a better term, nice and slow, wait and see what the Sentinels are going to do? Or are they going to take that coin flip? And maybe coin flip's not the best term ever, right? But you roll the dice, you risk it. You're like, we full send it. If we catch them out, we win. If we don't know where they are, which we don't, and things play out poorly, we're in the bin. And I kind of feel bad for the Sentinels in this situation to lose the way that they lost. But Kev, we say it all the time. You got to play. What is the way in which we win this? What is the way that the story will be written that the Panthers make it through to the finals over the Sentinels? And to be honest, winning like that on Sand River is definitely one of the ways that you could write that story.
I don't think I've ever seen a team do that. And you don't see it in pub battles because there's about 6 people playing TDs that just sit there and do nothing all game, hoping that you push that value. But on a 5-on-5 format, I mean, high risk, high reward, right? You're throwing the same strategy time and time again. You're going all in. You're trying out these different strategies. Eventually, one's going to work. Eventually, one is going to break the Sentinels. And that was the one. Something that we've never seen before in terms of an official match. Now, we might have seen it in a scrim, might have seen it in something else, but I've never seen that before in ANZPL. And they saw a super conqueror there. They weren't expecting the other Kranvan, and they went, we're going in on this. And you could see it pushes them out of position. Lightning Man gets the farm in, Goober gets the farm in, and then they all commit together on that 5-4. They utilize the tank's advantage, and all of a sudden the Sentinels just can't do anything. The luck, the skill, whatever it is, it's run out. And that's it. The Sentinels knocked out, and the Panthers, I mean, this is... Like, surely they win the finals. I'm sorry to say Tildas, but you can't make a run like this as the Panthers as in the finals.
I don't know. Today was a pretty wild ride for me. And I kind of feel, and maybe this is dumb, and I know I've said this is dumb a few times tonight, but I'm just going to go with it. Like, can you keep making these decisions, Jordan? Can you keep making plays like this where you essentially all in? You put all your chips in the center of the table. You haven't even looked at your cards yet. You don't even know what you've got. And you're ready to see what the deal is going to deal out.
It's an educated guess, though, isn't it? It's very similar to the discussion we were having around that Ghost Town game on Matilda's defense. You know, it's exactly the same kind of an idea, right? Panthers are sort of saying, well, we anticipate that there might be 1 or 2 tanks in the mid-river trying to get some spots for Sentinels. Maybe they've gone back, looked at some VODs, figured out what their setups are in the past, and they've sort of, in a way, decided, well, this is a bit of a gamble, yes, but it's a gamble that has a reasonable success rate, or at least it, in theory, should have. You know, maybe it's like 60, 65, 70% chance that this works out for us, 30% chance that they've just got tanks watching mid for some reason. But let's be real, I feel like that's a pretty straightforward strategy that I think you could have a pretty reasonable success rate the first time you pull it out. It's probably not going to work again for them, at least definitely not against the Sentinels, but they don't have to worry about that anymore. They've knocked Sentinels out of the picture, so who cares?
Yeah. I always just want to sit here and read chat as this plays out, by the way, because everyone, as this all comes through and people realize what's going on, it's quite an incredible feat. So the Panthers have pulled it off. They managed to knock the Sentinels out. They do it. We don't even go to the tiebreaker. And Dastardly has to be the MVP of the day. You said, okay, he gets one bad round. He had, 1 or 2 bad rounds. But for literally all of the wins, he's like the top of the scoreboard. He's stepped up today in a big way. I don't know, Kev, if that's because he's played the best or whether he's been given the positions where you can just sort of shoot all your shots and hope for the best. Obviously, you can be given the right position, but time and time again, I'll probably screw it up. But Dastardly was given the crucial spots tonight, and he definitely pulled it off.
Yeah, for sure. Individually, it's like you can be given the best position in the WOD, but if you're not hitting the shots and you're not going in at the right time, you're not using HP, you're not your focus fire correctly, you still will be losing these series. You can have the best player in the world sitting in the best position, but if he's not shooting the right target, he's going, I'm going to shoot this guy, then I'm going to change over to this guy, then we're going to do whatever, it's easy. It's not a game-winning play. So, yes, he's pumping out damage, he's pumping out relevant damage, he's getting the kill secures, he's doing everything you'd need to. I just think the Panthers overall, on the back of individuals playing well, there's also the calls that are coming out. And some people might go, look, it's gambly, it's risky, this is not your good default world of tanks. But you know what? I'm not going to swear, but I'd say screw off, because this is what I want tanks to be. Because I want this risk, I want this inherent risk versus reward. Sometimes you need to take these high risks. Like, I've never seen anyone tunnel down a dry riverbed like that before, like the Panthers. But
that's what I would do in my games, and then I'd die. But then they do it here properly with 3 of them. And I I would love to hear the Discord recording of the point at which the Sentinels realized that there were 3 tanks behind them in the riverbed and support was a good 15 seconds away. And at that point, maybe it was just too late.
What do you reckon? Maybe it's just literally, oh, we lose. You know, I feel like, that's something you probably don't say that, but that's what everyone's thinking. They see those 3 tanks pop up on the minimap.
Seconds from disaster,
you know,
right?
The noise as soon as they appear on the minimap, and you just go, yeah, we've lost.
Yeah, where's that come from? Yeah. They're behind us.
Yeah, it's a hard feeling. They would have been fighting to the end. Like, knowing the mindset of those guys, they would have just been focusing towards the end. And look, I don't think the Sentinels played poorly this series. I just think, once again, it's like the Panthers have played just fantastic. Out of their minds, individually. Just even like just the way that they played on Prokhorovka, the way that they played mainly on like these aggression base and how they've dealt with this. I'm convinced enough that it's like, yes, this is not just a gimmicky series victory. You don't gimmick your way to a 4-2 victory on a best of 7. You still need to have good fundamentals.
The back-to-back champions, by the way.
Against the two.
Yeah, who 0-4'd you earlier on in the season, who have looked fantastic for the last year and a half, might I say, this Sentinels lineup. But maybe this is a shift in a meta, Kev. We've seen people full send it before. We see it regularly, but there's obviously a clear difference tonight that the Panthers have been able to make that work.
Luck going their way, I think.
Sometimes.
People figure out, I mean, if you can figure out where to send 4 of your tanks against 2 enemy tanks, then you're always going to win from that point onwards because you've got the numbers advantage. The question is, how do you do it without getting spotted? How do you do it so you maintain like map control afterwards? All these questions. And I think the more that teams starting to evolve and adapt, and I think we saw that from the 2 teams tonight, the ones that truly brought these all-in strategies, like these pocket picks prepared in some of these extended series, alongside with like good default play, they're the ones that are rewarded with the finals berth. Now, am I convinced if we play this best of 7 series again, are they going to be the victors? I don't think so necessarily. But for today, just for one official, that's enough. And that's all you need. And that's what you do for these all-in strategies. You use it once, and this is it. You immortalize forever. We'll always be calling that the JS is coming home drive, I think, from now on Sand River. I'll be using that strat.
Well, they tried it twice, right? They tried it once on attack, and it went very poorly, and then they tried it on defense, and it went very well. So the Panthers have done what they needed to do. What a run from the team from Perth, led by JS, the fan favorite. I think he's everyone loves him. Look at it, chat just loves him. The JS bringing home whatever, blah 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 blah. You love to see it, and the fact that a week ago these guys were looking at like 7th place, maybe they're going to win $1,000. Now they guaranteed 5K, potentially 10K. If they come first. So what a wild run. Like, this is a crazy arc. You couldn't have written it any better if you're a Panthers fan. And I've rarely seen anything like this in esports in like the last 10 years. Like, never does a team come from like bottom 2 on the ladder to grand final in a couple of weeks' time. Now, obviously, this has been more than 2 weeks in the making. It's just panned out this way. But it's great to see what the Panthers have been able to do across the last 2 or 3 months or so since season 3 kicked off, and that, you know, they got their draft picks and this roster came together, and the work they've done and where we've got to, then the decisions they made tonight. So don't want to get too excited for them yet because they haven't won the grand final. That's going to be a tricky one for sure up against the Matildas, but so far so good. 2 crazy results today. Let's go and take a look at the board and recap that one. We started off with the South Sydney Skorpions up against the Melbourne Matildas. Jordan, I did predict the Matildas, but only because it was of the 2 that I could predict that wasn't the favourite that was the most likely to win. But I still didn't expect them to win. The fact that they come out with the 4-2 against the Skorpions, they did it in style. They look great.
Yeah, they did. I mean, I thought that I was the one that was going to get the predictions right today. You know, I went Skorpions, I went Sentinels. I thought that was pretty good, pretty straightforward. You know, you threw in the Matildas, Kev threw in the Panthers. I thought, surely you guys are going to get at least 1 wrong. If anyone's going to get 2 tonight, it's going to be me. But bamboozled. Absolutely bamboozled. You both get 1 point. I get none. Fair's fair, I guess. Matildas, Panthers through to the grand final. Crazy. And what's even funnier to me was the fact that we were, you know, hyping up the potential that we would get Skorpions versus Sentinels.
We're going to get
the grand
now.
Final. We are going to get it, yeah. But it's not going to be in the grand final. So it's not the way that we thought we would sort of see these matchups actually play out. But we do, in fact, get the matchups that we thought we were going to get.
We do indeed. So let's go and we'll take a look at the updated finals bracket as a result of this one. This is, again, not what we expected to see at all. The grand final in 2 weeks' time. The Melbourne Matildas v. the Perth Panthers. If you went back 1 or 2 weeks and looked at the scoreboard, I think Matildas probably would have been 2 or 3, maybe 3-4, and the Panthers were like 7th. So to see this as the grand final, obviously a lot of work done by both these teams this season, and it's going to be an absolute ripper. But that third place playoff match, Kev, we're going to get to see it. I thought it was going to be our grand final. I think most of us thought it was going to be our grand final. The Skorpions v. the Sentinels in the second last week of the season. It's not the full grand final experience, Kev, but I'll definitely take it.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue, though, tonight, obviously, the better teams made their way into the grand finals. I think we're going to have 2 really good matches to not only determine which side of the Sydney is the better Sydney, but also, I think 2 teams that, if this is any indication how one best of 7's gone, man, I don't even know what the grand finals are going to look like. I think it might even be better.
I think both the matches, I think this is the absurd thing, that the 2 matches I think are going to be the closest 2 matchups that we probably would see. Like the Matildas and Panthers and then the Scorpions and Sentinels. I think those are the matchups that we want to see. They're just in the reverse order. So it's going to be a cracker of a grand final. It's going to be a cracker of a third place playoff. I want to see them put their all in. I think playing for an extra $500 or something, still not bad, to be honest. The prize pool is pretty considerable this season. We can go and, let's go and have a look at the caster predictions. I'm less excited to look at this time. Somehow Kev picked the Panthers. Let's ignore the right-hand side of this. Let's take a look at Elfish Guy with his big 5 head with wrong on the Scorpions.
I went for the
wrong
safe picks
on the Sentinels. I baited you into this, Jordan, because I saw. So the way this works, we make our predictions in Discord every week, and I was there before you, but I was like, I'm going to wait for Jordan to pick the 2 top teams, the 2 favorites, like always, and then I'm just going to come through and pick the Matildas instead of the Scorpions.
Yeah, but I would have picked that regardless. I would have picked
Yeah,
those 2
well,
regardless.
that's boring. You can't all be the same.
It's not boring when they both lose.
Imagine if Kev... The best thing about this is that Kev picked the Scorpions as a troll because he never picks the Scorpions.
I picked the Panthers as a troll as well, to be honest.
Yeah, so they're both trolls. But if you'd gone with your gut for the first one, you would have got it right.
Predictions are always, for us to have a bit of fun with. So never in my mind did I actually envision, there was like a 1% chance, okay, that I went, all right, Panthers have that, once again, that main character energy. It's just they can't lose. You can't become you can't go from a JS moment from getting tracked into the finals without the expectation you're going to take it all. This, it had to work like this. And there's always the Melbourne Matildas at the end of the day. You got bad guy Bolt, the other side, ready to upset the kids once again. I heard he likes tackling kids and beating them up, but it should be a good finals.
It should be, indeed. So we've got 2 weeks left. Let's go and take a look at our matches for next week. A bit of a surprise for this one. I think it's kind of cool. So first up next week at 7 o'clock next Friday, we have the B League final, the Wolverines up against the Leopards. Firstly, I think those are some sick logos, but it's great that we're going to see the grand final on the ANZPL stream. The B League's gone great guns this season. I think they're still around on Monday, but these 2 teams obviously smashing it out by the looks of things, going to be making it through. So that's going to be our first game next Friday. Then following that, the game we thought was going to be the grand final, the Skorpions up against the Sentinels. They are going head-to-head in the third place match. So what a crazy world. But I do want to see them play. I'm glad we get to see them play one more time during the season. And it's a cool little prelude next week to the grand final in 2 weeks' time. So a couple of cool matches next week, that's for sure. I don't know. I don't want to make predictions on either of those games yet. I think we'll leave it for next week. But Kev, maybe Not what we thought we were going to see next week. I'm very keen to see it, however, and honestly, I feel like I'm living in an alternate timeline. Someone has messed with the
You're dreaming,
Matrix.
Ben.
How
Here
did
we
we
go.
get here?
3, 2, 1. Wake up.
Boom. Oh, wow.
No, we're still
I've
here.
lost 10 kilos. Fat Sandman was only in my dreams. Real Sandman's
yeah.
fit
The
and
Sandman that
skinny
gets
and
to eat all the
tall.
food. Yep. That is the
Oh,
Sandman
man.
of the dreams.
What a world. What a world it is. So our B League matches for this week. So as we said, we do still have one round of B League yet. So the yet to go, even though we know who's going to be in the final. Obviously, the Leopards have a bye, so that helps them. It's going to be the Wolverines against the Hellcats, and then the Comets up against the Centurions. As I said, the Leopards with the bye. We all made fun of JT last week, but I enjoy this one, Kev. I tune into the B League every Monday. The games are good. The analysis, to be fair, I like seeing Stewie and JT on the desk, if you can call it that. But
Can you see JT yet, or is it still?
Well, you have to.
I thought it was just a dark room.
You got to turn like the black whatever it is on your computer up, right? Like so you can. What does it do? Like it makes everything brighter, not the brightness, but the black hidey thing that you.
Contrast?
No, when you play the games and you want the advantage, you're not supposed to be able to see at nighttime in a video game, but you can see.
Gamma.
Black
that's it, the brightness,
equalizer,
the
that's the
contrast.
one.
Gamma?
The black equalizer, bro. Do you even know? Do you even play video games? Anyway. All right. Well, that was pretty exciting. If you don't know, obviously, things around the world are a little bit crazy at the moment. So whilst we will be playing the finals online, the grand final, we will be having a watch party at Fortress Melbourne. Now, Fortress Melbourne, obviously, we got to actually play the grand finals there in season 2. We had a sick time. I had a great weekend. It was a lot of fun. Had an after party, and the Alienware Arena was really sick. So if you are in Melbourne or you can make it to Melbourne, Saturday, the 13th of November at 6 p.m. onwards, the grand final will be played on a Saturday, not a Friday, because that's how it works. It's the grand final. It's cool. So if you can make your way in, go and do it. It'll be a ton of fun. You'll love it. I wish we were there, but we're not there. You can order, like you can sit down and just order whiskey to your table over and over and over. That's probably my favorite thing about Fortress. But I guess we're living in the future now, boys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I heard the best part of like ANZPL as well. If you go to Fortress, is apparently it's this mythical thing. I think I saw it once, but apparently if you go there and you order enough, Jay just starts bringing out his credit card and buying you drinks. So Jay Rader's honestly a fantastic human being. So that's I don't know. It's a mythical thing. I'll see if it can happen again. It's happened once. Maybe it'll happen the second time.
Oh, well, not for us this time because we'll be here. But if you can make your way there, definitely do it. You'll have a ton of fun. Watch it on the big screen. And games, like playing games is more fun with people. It's also more fun to watch games with people as well. So definitely get on board for that one if you can. That is our semi-finals done and dusted. What a crazy night of games. Nobody expected this. I don't like if you did, you're a goose. I don't know how you did it, but whatever. You obviously can tell the future. But our grand final and our third place match are locked in next week. As we said, the Sentinels v the Skorpions on the Friday night, along with our B League grand final. And then 2 weeks from tomorrow being Saturday the 13th, it's our grand final. And that's where we will see the Panthers go head-to-head with the Matildas. We're going to get our first ever new champion in 2 weeks. A first ever champion that is not the Sentinels. At this point, I have no idea who that's going to be. So a couple of weeks to that one. I hope you all enjoyed the matches tonight. We had a pretty wild ride. Enjoy your weekend. And until then, happy tanking.
selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector.